Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if council gives Naruto ancient wolf blood harem. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by ShadowLightDark, link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. I do not own Naruto. Several millennia ago, during a time ruled by gods, demons, and elementals, a land divided for those who rule it. The gods claimed the sky, created their cities of light and named it Olympus, while the demons declared the underworld their home, constructed a fortress called Makai. Finally, the elementals who ruled the land above Makai and below Olympus divided it into 5 regions for the 5 basic elements of life. United, this land was named Arlamand, and together, the elements came together to create Daxium, the white castle of the northern wind, along with its sister, Teredos, the black fortress of the southern current. Abacus, the silver city of the western ranges, and Xerifius, the grey village of the eastern storms, soon followed several years later. These 4 cities soon became the symbol for all of the elements except for one, fire. Jealousy and madness started to fill the fire elementals' bodies, and before long, chaos started to appear. It wasn't until centuries later that the most of the fire elementals left their respective cities before they met at the heart of Arlamand. There, they constructed a city for themselves, one they intended on using to show their might and power over the other 4 elements. They called this place Mortis, the Forbidden Gates of the Inferno. It would be years after the city's completion before the fire elementals would attack. Abacus was the first to be hit by the horde of flames before it quickly fell after a few hours of combat. The few survivors of the fallen city traveled to as quickly as they could. The news of the attack quickly spread to all who would listen. But unfortunately, not many would listen until the fall of Xerifius. Once the fall of Xerifius reached the ears of the elementals in Daxium and Teredos, all attempts were made to create an army to fight. It would be months before the army of the flames reached the walls of Daxium, and when it did, the 2 groups looked at each other before they charged. This was the beginning. The battles were far more than any could count, and days of combat turned into weeks before it turned into months and then years. These warring beasts' battles soon started to spread until it covered the whole land of Arlamand. The armies of land, sea, and air engaged in an endless battle as they ripped the very ground that they stood on through their manipulation of the elements. Water from the ocean surged with ferocity as it forced the very land to shift at its whim. Wind sliced through all obstacles in its path as it left a trail of destruction in its wake. Fire scorched the fields of green as it reduced everything to ash and scarred the earth. Earth rose from the empty fields as mountains appeared in the middle of oceans, while peaks crashed down the heavens where they roamed for all of eternity. Days turn into weeks, months turn into years as the endless war continues on. The rivers of blood never stopped. As the sun rose above the destroyed field of battle, the 5 armies of the elements appeared to do battle once more. From the horizon, an army of warriors appeared with their weapons drawn and no essence of fear in their bloods. With the darkened clouds loomed overhead, the army charges towards the elemental armies with hope of victory and restore the peace to the lands. For 7 days and 6 nights, the 6 armies battled against each other, with no intent to stop until there was a clear victory. On the 7th night, the army of warriors finally fell to the combined combat, leaving the 10 generals to fight the horde of creatures. Hours into the night, the generals started to fall one by one. As the last one fell to the blade of an elemental, an unnatural force shook the field with power no one has ever felt before. The ground split wide open as it devoured some of the combatants. Flames roared from the deeps of the abyss as it launched itself into the night sky before they dissipated completely. Some say that the gates of Makai broke open as a demon rose from the fiery abyss. Others say that a god that had fallen from Olympus had woken from his slumber after several millennia before he broke the gates of Makai. Whether demon or god, the remainder of the 5 armies attacked yet nothing could touch him. The wind roared with every swipe while the earth trembled with every step. As the sun rose over the battlefield on the 8th day, it illuminated the carcass-covered field with no evidence of life anywhere. With the weapons of the 10 warrior generals gathered together, the elemental slayer stabs them into the ground before it started chanting. Slowly, the bodies of the beast started to dissolve into particles before it floated towards the weapons. Each weapon started to glow brighter and brighter as more particles flew into them until a bright light consumed the whole field and the slayer. The light died down slowly to reveal the 10 weapons, but there was no evidence of the elemental slayer. The land suddenly broke before it encompassed the weapons in a tomb of stone. Legend stated that centuries after that battle, a group of 10 warriors that had explored the land had found the weapons located within the tomb. With weapons in hand, they continued on their way, not knowing what would occur in their evident future. Before long, the powers of the elementals leaked out of the weapons and resulted in corrupting the 10 beings with the power until they transformed into something beyond their wildest imaginations. Legend stated that the weapons gave the 10 men power beyond their wildest dreams, but at the cost of being transformed into the beasts themselves. No longer were they adventurers or explorers but rather titans. With their newly gained power, the 10 warriors conquered the former lands of Arlament and built their own empires. Fueled with the powers of the souls in their weapons, the Titans gained power over individual elements. These elements branched out from the natural 5 natural elements. The first 5 of the Titans received one of the basic elements of earth, fire, water, air, and lightning. From fire came magma while ice came from water. From earth came plants while lightning brought forth storms. Air remained true to itself and never branched out to other elements. However, the 10th Titan acquired a unique element and thus made him different from the others. Some said that the new element brought strength and power that gave him power over the other 9. Once again, the shadows of darkness covered the land like it once did many centuries ago. The clouds no longer let the sun shine through them, as the dark clouds above constantly hovers in the sky, as it gave no hope of an end. The 10 Titans established their court in the ruins of Mortis before they established their empires. Using their power, they extended Arlament and named the extension Titanus. With both Arlament and Titanus under their control, the Titans established their empires, giving each other an approximate equal to the others. Peace remained intact for several more years. As it occurred hundreds of scores ago, tension started to build between the separate Titan Empire to the point that war was inevitable between the powers. The lands once again became scarred after many centuries of healing, while the clouds no longer parted, leaving darkness in its wake. Months of combat turned into years of slaughtering as villages and cities were destroyed. Nothing escaped the devastation of the war. As history repeats itself, deep from the pits of Makai, something rose from its lumber after many centuries, and for the second time in several millennium, opens the earth once more to walk on it once again. Like the elementals several centuries ago, the Titan armies attacked the being only to easily defeated. He drew his blade, Durnwin, along with a Sengard, a war axe-shaped tomahawk, before they charged into the fray like he once did many centuries ago. Demons, giants, elemental spirits, and all creatures or warriors called by the Titans, fell to the weapons. And one by one, the Titans fell. As each one fell, he sealed them away, never to be found for all eternity. It was years later that the 10th and final Titan was sealed into his prison, but the conflict between the two didn't come without a price. It occurred several months after the sealing. The slayer of elementals and Titans fell to his knees at the gates of Makai before he closed his eyes. He knew it was his end, and he stabbed Durnwin into rock before he started to fade. His body slowly disappeared into the thin air, leaving his blade embedded into the stone. The red-haired woman closed the book she held in her hands before she looked down at her swollen belly. Her name is Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, also known as the Red Death, and now, future mother of a child. With a smile, she turned her gaze outside to the dark clouds that covered the moon before she heard a knock on the door. She heard the door creak open, and she turned to face it, only for a smile to grow on her face. Right by the door was her secret husband, Minato Namikaze, also known as the Yellow Flash, and the Fourth Hokage of Konohagakure no Sado. With a smile plastered on his face, the blonde man moved towards the red-haired woman before he engulfed her in an embrace. She returns it after she placed the book onto a nearby table. "Reading to the baby again, dear?" Minato asked his wife while he held her close to him. "Of course," she replied as she turned to face her blonde husband with a smile on her face. "He's going to become an amazing ninja like us one day, I can feel it. I'm not going to argue with you on that one though. How will you know that the baby will be a he, not a she? Call it a mother's intuition. What were you ready to him anyway?" The blonde asked as he stared at the book that was once in his wife's hands before she placed it down. "It's called." She grabbed it back from the table she placed it on before relocating it to a bookcase nearby. "The Legend of the Fallen. I found it when I was looking in your library and just started to read it to the baby." "Legend of the Fallen?" Minato said as his mind wandered. "I remember now. The book is about how the mythical titans came to be and how the Fallen rose from his slumber to defeat them. Why would you read this to the baby though? Are you questioning me right now, mister?" His wife asked with a sweet tone that made him shiver while he slowly backed away. "Oh, of course not, dear," he stuttered out, resulting in a smile from the woman in front of him. Time skip, 5 months. In a cottage far away from the village, the cries of agony echo throughout the small household as a red-haired woman balled up her hands tightly before she released another blood-curdling scream of pain. Right beside her was the wife of the third Hokage, Bawako Saratobi, while a blonde blur ran around like a chicken whose head just got cut off. "Okay, dear," Bawako said calmly to the redhead. "When the next contraction comes, you need to push." "Okay," muttered an exhausted Kushina Uzumaki before letting out a grunt of pain. "Minato Namikaze. This is all of your fault. If you hadn't knocked me up like this. You're lucky that I can't move, or so help Kami, I would make sure that you wouldn't be able to do this to me again." "But Kushi-chan," the blonde said in a small voice, afraid of the demonic energy that seems to be coming off from the red-haired woman. "No buts, Namikaze. I promise you. Minato. Get your ass over here and help maintain the seal." Bawako shouted at the trembling blonde a few feet away. "Are you not the Fourth Hokage? I mean, this is the reason why male don't get pregnant, they're too weak to handle the pain. The blonde regained his composure as he moved towards his wife and watched as the red yaki started to leak out from the seal on her stomach before it gradually receded. Unknowns to him, Kushina and the sealed being were trying to keep themselves from being separated with all their might, but the pregnancy had weakened both of their strengths in great proportions. It was at that moment that a wave of pain surged through the red-haired Kunoichi as she released a cry of agony. "Now Kushina." Bawako called to her. "Push." With a grunt, the woman pushed as she wrapped her hand around her husband's hand and held it tightly. Minato, on the other hand, used a shadow clone to assist him in maintaining the seal. After a few minutes of grunts, pains, and pants, Bawako moved towards the two with a bundle in her hands. She then handed them the bundle to reveal a baby with cerulean eyes that stared into theirs. "Congratulations," the wife of the third said to them softly. "You have a healthy young boy. I told you the baby would be a boy," Kushina whispered to her blonde lover before she started to cough violently. Her husband and the old Sarutobi female both held looks of concern, and it only deepened when they spotted a small splatters of blood that stained her white hospital gown. "Kushina." Minato shouted with surprise as he moved to hold her hand, but only for him to be pushed away by Bawako. The female Sarutobi and the few nurses started to examine the red-haired woman as she continued to cough up the red liquid. The sudden chatter between the doctors caused Minato to start pacing back and forth quickly, while worrying and fear started to enter his system. Several screams alerted him as he turns towards the door to find a man with an orange mask on and his Anbu guards lying on the ground in rather large puddles of blood. With amazing speed, the orange-masked man throws several kunai at the blonde Hokage while throwing another set at the group of cowering nurses around Kushina's bed. With speed only he possessed, Minato dodged a hail of projectiles before he heard more screams. He turns to find that the second set of projectiles had killed the nurses, along with Bawako. All that remained were the Hokage, his wife, his newly born son, and the masked man. "I must say," the masked man said aloud. "You are quite faster than I had expected, Minato Namikaze, but I must say not fast enough." Minato narrowed his eyes and thoroughly examined his opponent. From what he had heard, it was a male, and he wore an orange mask with a spiral pattern on it. His consisted of a large black cloak capable of hiding weapons from his line of sight. "What do you want from me?" the fourth Hokage asked seriously. "You? I want nothing of you. But rather I want your wife. I suggest you back away from the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, no Kitasan, Minato," the masked man replied before lifting his hand and revealed a bundle of towels and cloth. "Otherwise your child dies. It would a shame really." "Naruto," the distressed mother called out before she coughed once again. "I guess I have no choice, do I?" the aggressor said before he tossed the newborn up into the arm. Minato's eyes widened before he hurled his tri-pronged kunai. The projectile embedded itself into the wall before a yellow flash appeared and grabbed the falling baby boy. "Your reputation precedes you, Namikaze," a voice said behind him. The blonde man turns to find the masked man to be standing right beside his wife. She seemed to be struggling in his grasp, but her weakened state did nothing to help her current position. "No." the Hokage cried as the two disappeared into thin air, clearing several miles from Konoha. As quickly as he had disappeared, the masked man reappeared with a weakened Kushina beside him in a clearing with several towering rocks. Kushina, on the other hand, faded in between the blackness of unconsciousness and the color of reality. She felt nothing when the man placed shackles on her wrists and ankles. "I would really like it if you would stay awake, dear," sneered the masked man. "So you can see the end of Konoha along with your beloved Hokage before you die. I do need my pet from you though." But that said, the red yaki started to leak from the red-haired woman's navel while she cried out in pain. The process continued as more and more of the red-colored yaki poured out before it shaped itself into a fox with 9 tails. More minutes had passed, and the blood-red fox started to grow to the point it was around 30 stories tall. Soon, the yaki started to fade away to reveal the red-orange fur of the fox and the black eyes. Meanwhile, the red-haired woman just let her head hang as darkness closed around her. "Naruto Minato," she mumbled as exhaustion soon started to claim her. "At last. You are mine now." the man cried out as the beast released a feral roar into the dark night. "It is time you return to your rightly owner." "I don't think so," a voice behind him said, which prompted the cloaked figure to turn. Standing several feet in front of him was a man with a mop of blonde, spiky hair. It was all he needed to know who it was. "It seems that you found me," he mocked. "A shame really, but it seems that you are too late to stop me now." "It's never too late to stop you," shouted the Namikaze as he hurled several of his tri-pronged kunai at his opponent. The cloaked man jumped away before his hand sped through several seals. "You have tried to interfere in my plans for the last time," he shouted angrily. "Fire release. Dragon flame bomb." A great dragon of bright orange fire appeared from the mouth of the masked man before it launched itself towards the fourth Hokage. He vanished in a yellow flash before he reappeared several meters away. The roars of the fox demon echoed in the background as the two stared each other down. The two moved in a synchronized manner as they jumped backwards as they launched several projectiles like shurikens and kunais aimed at the other. The metal objects collided in midair and caused a cacophony of sounds before free-falling to the ground. "You are only delaying the inevitable, Namikaze," growled the masked man. "No one, not even you, can stop me. No one is unbeatable." The blonde Cage retorted back. "I will ensure of that." But that said, the blonde started to channel chakra to the palm of his hand. The chakra soon started to become visible to the naked eye as it formed a medium-sized ball. The ball of energy soon stabilized itself as it rested above the Cage's hand. Minato then disappeared in a yellow flash, making the masked man's eyes narrow slightly. "Where will he be?" he thought as his feet shifted. "I guess I will have to use that move then." Suddenly, a yellow flash appeared right beside him and the ball of chakra is pushed forward, only for its intended target to disappear. Instead, the ball crashes into a tree and split it in half in mere seconds. "Foolish attack, Namikaze," the Hokage's enemy said. "But I don't have time for you." With that, the man vanished along with the nine-tailed fox. The next day, it had been a day since the fox had been released from Kushina's body and it was beginning to take its toll on her. Minato never left her side when the doctors examined her after they returned after the conflict with the man. One of these doctors was Tsunade Senju, a student of Hiruzen Sarutobi, one of the legendary Sannin, and the best medical ninja they knew. It brought relief to both husband and wife when she told them the results of the examination. Kushina had suffered some internal damage because of the forced exit of the Kyuubi, but thanks to the small amounts of Yauki that was left in her body's system, it started to make repairs. It was because of this that Kushina was going to live. This greatly confused the two, but they just accepted the fact that the redhead was going to live even after the ordeal that just occurred. She was still ordered bed rest by the blonde Sannin, and thus resulted in Minato staying by her side to the point that he brought most of his paperwork with him to the hospital. The two decided to tell the events that occurred at the cottage with only two people. Hiruzen Sarutobi and Minato sensei, Jiraiya of the Sannin. The former Cage could only look at the two with shock when they revealed the death of his wife by the hands of the unknown assailant. Now, it was nighttime in Konoha, though one could be forgiven if any had said it was as warm as a summer's day. The reason of the warmth and brightness was that Konohagakure no Sato, the village hidden in the leaves, was under attack. The attacker was not the army of an enemy village, nor was it even human. It was a fox of monstrous proportions with 9 waving tails behind it. The fox was by all definitions a demon and as such had a fitting title. Kyuubi no Yauko, the demon lord of the 9th circle of Makai. Its maws unleashed torrents of flames that ignited the field of trees and its tails caused mountains to crumble into dust. The flames spread throughout some parts of the village and it was burning so brightly that one would mistake it for the sunrise. Many buildings burned down while civilians run towards the bunkers and safe houses located in several areas of the village. On the other hand, all shinobi in Kunoichi raced towards the front lines with hopes to delay the beast. The ninja of Konoha were not simply going to let this demon destroy their home. Everything that they had worked so hard to rebuild after the war with Iwagakure would be for naught if the fox penetrated their line of defense. They fought with all the power they could muster, trying everything to subdue the beast, but it was not enough. The 9-tailed demon was attacking at random patterns, leaving destruction and death in its wake. Any attacks that the shinobi launched at the beast would do nothing other than annoy it. All they could do was stall it and hope that their Hokage could muster a plan to defeat the demon lord and end the destruction. With Minato-kun, what will you do?" asked a weak and weary Kushina. There was no immediate answer as a long silence followed the question. Kushina only looked at her husband and instantly knew he was deep in thought. She waited patiently, something she was never good at, before she saw the small frown that marred his face. This worried her greatly as she continued to look at her husband. "I'm thinking that I may have to seal it. There doesn't seem to be any other way," the blonde Cage answered. "Seal?" she inquired as her eyes narrowed. "Into what exactly?" "This is the Kyuubi no Yauko that we are talking about here. She cannot easily be sealed into an iron ball like the Nibi or a kettle like the Ichibi. The container would easily be destroyed in a matter of hours unless it was a person you sealed her into. Besides, Kyuubi-chan is not like this. What reason would she attack Konoha and us? This isn't like her at all. She was and still our friend. Besides, what would you seal her into?" As she asked this question, the fear within her body started to rise as she thought of the possible solutions for their current dilemma. She was deep into thought and didn't see her lover look down. He would have to seal it into a human being, she concluded. That could mean only one thing. "Kushina-chan, I must seal it into a newborn baby," he replied softly. "It is the only way." Kushina looked at the man she currently loved as his answer only confirmed her fears. Her look did not hold one of love, happiness, or anything positive, but rather one of pain and suffering. This was aimed at the Hokage as she slowly moves towards the frightened man. "You cannot be serious. You would be damning that child to a life of misery, she shouted at him while she thought about her newborn child and the events that would occur if this fate was thrust upon him. I have no choice. Either one must endure this or the whole village will be destroyed. There was no anger in his voice, only regret and disappointment for the current course of action. Her expression softened as she looked at him. What about if you and I, she asked quietly, only to be interrupted by Minato. No, it would not be possible. You are still weak from that man extracting Kyuubi from you. There is nothing we can do, the sealing is the only method. I still don't agree, but there haven't been any births. Her voice tapered as her thoughts wandered on before realization struck her. She turned to see the apologetic look upon the Namikaze's face before she gave him a death glare. No, you will not use our child. I will not subject our own flesh and blood to that. I absolutely refuse. I would trust no one else with such a burden other than one of my own flesh and blood. No. I absolutely refuse to do this. Nothing means more to me than him. If I can't make the sacrifice, how can I ask someone else to do so? There are no births as of the last 2 days other than Naruto. I must seal Kyuubi into him to save the village, and that would mean that Naruto will become an orphan. Orphan? What do you mean orphan? The sealing, he said hesitantly before continuing. The sealing will require my life. I must summon the Shinigami to consummate the sealing. She quickly realized what he just said before letting the grief and sadness flood her system. She shared a bond with Minato that was beyond the status of husband and wife. It was to the point that when one of them died, the other would shortly follow to ensure that they would remain united even in the afterlife. It was too much for her to bear as the tears started to fall from her eyes. She held on to her son, knowing that these were going to be that last moments that they have together. Both Minato and Kushina spoke nothing more as they cherished the last few minutes they had together with their son. Unfortunately, the monstrous roar of the Kyuubi reached their ears, and with sorrowful eyes, the blonde Hokage took the infant from his wife's arms. Kushina, it's time, I must go and perform the sealing before any more lives are lost, Minato said in a soft voice. I'll see you on the other side, Minato-koi, she replied before looking at her son. Naruto, know that I will always love you even though your father and I could not be with you in life. Live your life like we did with ours and know that we will always be watching you. Make sure to eat your vegetables and become a great shinobi like your father and I were. Goodbye my son. Her voice softened as she planted a kiss on the babe's forehead before more tears cascaded from her eyes. She just looked at Minato with sad eyes as he looked at their son before disappearing in a yellow flash. Battlefield. When he arrived at the battlefield in a bright yellow flash, a unanimous cry from all Konoha shinobi filled the air. The commotion started to pick up as the waves of attacks started to increase. This significantly started to slow down the demon lord from the massive attacks. But Minato heard none of this. All he saw was the large scale of destruction that littered the field. All of his senses were at an all-time high. The feeling of a blood-soaked ground squelching as he walks towards the sound of dying comrades. The smell of burning flesh, the taste of the smoke thick in the air from all of the fires, and the sight of hundreds upon hundreds of lifeless bodies, ripped into shreds, burned, flattened by the fox's great paws all dyed red with blood. It was all too much. Right beside the blonde man was a rather old one wearing battle armor, and behind these two were two other shinobi. Minato-kun, are you sure that this is for the best? You could teach me the hand signs for the jutsu and allow me to take your place? Asked the old man. No thank you, Sarutobi-sama. This is my responsibility and I will not shirk from my duties as Hokage, Minato said strongly before looking at the elder man. It was there that Sarutobi saw a resolve of steel. He then knew nothing he said would affect the man's decision in any form. Kakashi, come, the blonde called as a man with gravity-defying hair walks forward. Watch over him and protect him. When the time comes, be there for him. Please. I will sensei, Kakashi answered softly. Jiraiya sensei. I already know brat, replied Jiraiya, a man with a flowing mane of white spiky hair. Teach him when he's ready and don't turn him into a pervert unless I want Kushina to come back and kill me for it. This earned small chuckles from the three shinobi, while Jiraiya just lets out a sigh of disappointment. Minato then turned towards the elder Sarutobi once again. Sarutobi-sama, please make sure he is treated like a hero. He deserves to be one. I will make sure he will be. The reassurance was all Minato needed before he bit his thumb. His hand started to weave into hand signs before they slammed onto the ground. Suddenly, a large plume of white smoke appeared before dissipating to reveal a very large toad wearing a large blue happy vest with a massive dosu blade at his hip. The toad's famous Kiseru pipe hung from his mouth. He looks towards his opponent. This was Gambunta, the current boss summon for the Toad Summoning Clan. Minato, if I am not much mistaken that's the Kyuubi. Don't tell me you seriously intend on taking on the most powerful of the Bijuu. Gambunta asked the blonde cage riding on top his head. Afraid so boss. I need you to keep him busy and me out of his reach while I make the final preparations for the sealing, Minato replied. I will do what I can, the toad boss replied before he jumped towards the nine-tailed fox. Water release. Gunshot. Bullets of water shot out of the boss summon's mouth and flew towards the red fox before making impact. With a mighty roar, the demon lord unleashed a torrent of crimson flames. The flames made impact with the ground and resulted in earth-shattering screams. "Amabunta, we need to get the fox away from the village," shouted the blonde Hokage. "I'll try, but I don't know if I will be able to," grunted the toad boss before he drew his blade from its sheath. "Come on, flame, breathe, let's see what you got." Water release. Gunshot. Several blobs of water shot out of the toad's mouth and made impact with the fox demon. It unleashed another roar before one of the tails lunged to attack. Gamabunta dodges the attack with a quick dodge before he spat out more balls of liquid and lunged forward with his blade. It almost reached its target before several tails slammed onto the boss summon's side and caused him to slide several meters. Gamabunta took a few seconds to regain his senses, and during this time, the Kyuubi slashed him. The attack didn't hit the large toad, but rather hit his pipe, causing it to break into several pieces. "Damn," muttered Gamabunta as he spat out the remains of pipe before he tightened his hold on his blade. That was favorite pipe. He then charged the beast and clashed with it. The fox held the toad boss to a standstill and caused the surrounding area to become even more devastated. Every time the fox left an opening, Gambunta took advantage with an attack. The fox would defend itself from any of the attacks using its tails. "It's ready." Minato screamed over the sounds of battle. "I'm sorry, but this must be done especially to you, Kyuubi no Yako." Shiki Fuin. Above the fourth Hokage, a spectral entity appeared. It wore a white cloak while it held a dagger between its teeth. He knew just who this entity was. It was the Shinigami. Kyuubi tried to move away from the being, but its body would not move one bit. The demon lord watched as the Shinigami plunged its hand through the blonde Hokage before it grabbed its soul. Kyuubi tried to struggle out of its grasp as it was once again sealed into another human being. This time, it was sealed into the newborn named Naruto, and when the Shinigami released it, an intricate pattern appears on his stomach. Minato just spent the last few moments of his life and held his son. "I'm sorry for doing this, my son," he whispered while his tears flowed from his eyes. "I'm sorry for preventing you from having a family. I'm sorry for not being able to be there for you when you start your own family. I can only hope that you will find someone who will love you, no matter what you contain. Someone like your mother. I'm sorry, my son." With those final words, the blonde Kage took his last breath with his eyes centered on his crying son. He knew the Kushina would soon follow him to the afterlife, and he hoped that his village would treat him as a hero. At the battlefield, the shinobi of Konoha could only celebrate as they watched the Kyuubi disappear and knew that their Hokage had defeated it. Everyone cheered except for Hiruzen Sarutobi, Kakashi, and Jiraiya. These three shinobi rushed to where the Kyuubi disappeared and found the dead body of the fourth holding his crying son. Above them, Gambunta let a single tear fall from his eye before he returned to the summoning realm. Kakashi took the crying baby into his arms, while Jiraiya lifted the dead body of the Hokage. It was at this point that Konoha shinobi appeared from the trees before they asked the location of the fourth, but the Sarutobi prevented them. He quickly took control of the situation and told them that this was neither the time nor the place to answer the questions. Days later, Sarutobi retook the mantle as the Hokage to prevent the chaos and anarchy that would have emerged from the death of their Hokage. He held the information of Naruto's true heritage from the council and told them of his status as an orphan from a civilian family. He also told them the burden he currently held as the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi and how the fourth wanted him seen as a hero. The civilians and elders called for his death and constantly call for his death as they state that he would become the demon reincarnated. On the other hand, the shinobi side wanted to respect their dead Kage's last wish and attempted to adopt the child, with the exception of the Uchiha clan. The elders and the civilian council put down the idea quickly. Sarutobi knew what had to be done and told the council that Naruto will be placed in an orphanage. His status as the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi was now an S-rank secret, with the penalty of death to those that speak of it, before he dismissed the council. Years later, Sarutobi looked outside his window at the proud village of Konoha, with his thoughts wandering to the blonde child. Little did he know about the fate he would have, or the greatness that he would soon achieve. Little did he know about the future of Konoha. Little did he know about what will soon happen to the elemental nations. I do not own Naruto or the themes evident in this story. Today is October 10. Location: a village surrounded by miles of forests in any direction. This village is called the village hidden in the leaves. It was considered to the strongest over the other four major villages through their prowess in strength in military and politics, through the production of strong shinobi. This included the Professor, Copy Ninja Kakashi, the Sannin, the Ino Shikacho trio, and most of all, the Yellow Flash. The Yellow Flash, also known as Minato Namikaze, was remembered by all through the Third Shinobi War when he defeated several squads of Iwa, and even more so when he defeated the Demon Lord of the Ninth Circle, the Kyuubi no Kitsune. It has been 8 years have passed since that battle, and since then, the village has thrived. Many of the citizens currently celebrate as the day marked the death of the Kyuubi, but they also mourn the death of the fourth Hokage for his sacrifice. It was also 8 years since the reinstated Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, passed the S-ranked law that punished those that told others about the Kyuubi being sealed into a boy, the son of the late fourth Hokage, named Naruto. It was his belief that this law would prevent those in the council from passing the information to others, but all it did was harden the task. They were successful in spreading the information to the citizens, and this transformed into a strong hate aimed towards the newborn Jinchuriki. It all started when he was kicked out of the orphanage at the age of 3 and had to suffer the assault from a massive mob of citizens. They chased him and attacked him when they finally caught him. It would have continued until the third Hokage came and saved him before he had his Anbu execute the attackers. Then, he gave the boy an apartment to live in, and it resided in between the merchants and shinobi area of the village. Along with the apartment, the Hokage gave him a weekly allowance to purchase from stores. Whenever he went anywhere, everyone would send glares at him. The stores he went to held a strong hatred towards him and either overpriced their goods, refused to give him any service, or threw him out into the streets. This continued until it reached October 10. During this day, many of the civilians and shinobi would get drunk because of the celebrations before creating a mob. This mob would try to find the boy and attack him. Because of the frequency of these events, it finally became a form of entertainment that many called fox hunt. The mobs that formed were mostly civilians, but sometimes, shinobi would join in. No matter how long it took, they would always catch the boy and beat him within an inch of death before being rescued by his protectors. His protectors would kill some people of the mob before they dispersed. They would then get him to a hospital and get him treated before staying with him to make sure he was safe. This dark night of October was no different than the rest as shouts of "Kill the demon" and "Let's finish what the fourth started" filled the alleyways of the village. A young boy with a mop of blonde hair ran through the alleyways and streets as he tried to escape. Behind him, a large mob that contained shinobi and civilians alike followed him. Their expressions held one of glee and malicious intent as they followed their prey. Whenever they spotted him, they started to throw anything they could to slow him down or even stop him. These projectiles included glass bottles, knives, and shurikens. They flew at high speeds and smashed into random walls or buildings as the blonde weaved his way through the incoming attacks. It wasn't long before a stray kunai impales itself into the running blonde and caused him to fall onto the ground. This allowed his pursuers to gain ground, and it wasn't long before they were a few meters away from the boy. He tried to scramble away, but several more projectiles hit his back and caused him to fall back down in pain. Naruto just curled into a ball as he accepted his fate. "Look here boys, the demon is trying to huddle up to keep itself from being killed. We can't have that now, can we?" said a crazy-looking man. "It's time for you to pay your dues. You've lived in our village for the past 7 years and take our food along with the madness you ensure with your so-called pranks. You killed my wife. My family died all because of you. You destroyed my clan's house. This is for my sister." He even controls the Hokage himself. He lets him roam our village and cause mayhem. I say it's time for him to end. It's time to finish what the fourth started and kill this beast to protect Konoha from his terror. Kill him. Yeah. Cried the members of the mob as they rushed in to beat the helpless child, pushing him to the brink of death. They started to pull out several items like long wooden sticks and sharpened blades before they used them against the boy. The pieces of wood made impact against his body and left large black bruises everywhere. It wasn't long before the crowd heard a crack along with a cry. They knew that a bone was broken, and instead of stopping, they just continued with more ferocity. The kunais and knives were stabbed into his skin and were slowly dragged in random directions. They formed long cuts that allowed a large amount of blood to pour out. It wasn't long before the boy started to lose consciousness from the massive loss of blood. He didn't see the 2 large pieces of wood that his aggressors brought with them or feel the pain as they stabbed a kunai through his hands and feet. It felt like hours of torture for the blonde boy until he finally fell to the darkness of unconsciousness. When the mob saw him lose his consciousness, they continued to abuse his body. Before they stepped back to examine their work, their victim was stabbed to a wooden cross while streams of blood continued to pour out of the cuts. The cuts and bruises littered his whole body. They knew that no one would be able to identify the boy because of the large amounts of damage done. It's time to end this. You will now die. Yeah. Burn his body. Say goodbye, demon. Fire release. Great fireball. A large orange ball of fire launched from the mouth of the ninja before it flew towards the deformed body of the blonde. All around the ninja, the large mob of people cheered loudly as they were about to witness the death of the demon. Naruto, on the other hand, knew what was about to happen and accepted the fate of death as he felt the intensity of the heat increase. However, fate smiled upon him. Water release. Water fang bullet. Out of nowhere, a large bullet of water slammed into the speeding ball of fire before it extinguished the flames from the plane of existence. However, the impact of water and fire created a shroud of mist that covered the area. The people of the mob could only narrow their eyes as they tried to make out anything within the field. It wasn't long before the veil of mist disappeared and revealed 5 beings that proudly stood in between them and the blonde boy. Upon further examination of the group of individuals, they quickly saw that 4 of them wore full black pants and full black shirts with light gray chest armor. Their faces shifted to one of terror when they saw that the faces of these people were covered with an animal mask. They were Anbu. The 5th person was different from the other 4 and stood in between them. The individual was an old man who wore white robes along with a triangular hat. The most prominent detail of the hat was the kanji for fire. This was Hiruzen Sarutobi, the 3rd Hokage, and he was not pleased. "What the hell do you people think you're doing?" he asked sharply while his killing intent rolled off him in massive amounts. "Hokage-sama," one of the Anbu called. "Why, you might want to see this." The Hokage turned and paled at the sight in front of him. He saw the blonde hair and automatically knew who it was. Around him, the 4 shinobi grasped their blades as they slowly leaked out killing intent. The old man quickly turned back around to face the crowd of people with a glare etched on his face. "We were just finishing what the F4th started Hokage-sama," a frightened shinobi said from amidst the mass of people before they felt another wave of kai. "What you're doing is hurt an innocent child," roared the Hokage as he added more kai with each word. "He is not innocent," a random citizen cried out. "He is a demon. He controls you and make you see him as a child." Silence reigned for a few moments before the citizen let fear overcome his senses. He tried to turn and run away, but it was too late for him. He slammed into something and fell down to the ground. His eyes dilated as he saw what stopped him. In front of him was one of the Anbu that stood by the Hokage. "You broke an S-rank law," the shinobi whispered before he drew his blade. "You will now accept the punishment of death." As soon as the word death was said, the ninja stabbed the blade into the man's heart before being pulled out. No one else moved or spoke a word. "Anbu?" Sarutobi yelled as more of the masked shinobi appear out of nowhere. "Take them into custody. All shinobi are now dishonorably discharged from your services. Take them all to Ibiki and tell him not to hold back." "Hi Hokage-sama," responded the masked shinobi before they surrounded the people and led them down the alleyway to another portion of the village. "Cat, dog, snake, and bear, you're with me. We're taking Naruto to the hospital." The 4 Anbu nod before they moved towards the blonde. Carefully, the kunais from his hands and feet before placing bandages at the holes to try to prevent more blood loss. Then, cat and dog took the boy before they quickly moved towards the nearest hospital. The Noha hospital. It would be a matter of minutes before the group made it to the hospital. The blonde boy was then taken to a special room for him. The head doctor made it when they found out that several of the staff flat out refused to care for the boy because he was a demon. Those doctors and nurses were promptly fired several minutes later. Only those loyal to the Hokage and held no hatred towards him were allowed to apply in the hospital. 2 of the doctors that treated him were Megumi and Maiho Megumi. They knew Naruto was the son of Minato and Kushina through the friendship the 4 had. A group of doctors stopped working before dispersing, while one of them headed towards a worried old man. "Sarutobi-sama, it seems he is fine thanks to the Kyuubi. It healed most of the wounds, but I know nothing of the boy's mental state. I would probably hypothesize it's on the verge of breaking down," Maiho stated. "Damn those deranged villagers," cursed Hiruzen, but right now, he was too worried of Naruto's welfare to care about the villagers right now. Dog and the other 3 Anbu could only tighten their fists in anger and grief for the blonde boy. "It's best to let him rest for now and wait for the result in the morning," said Akiko in a sad tone. "Thank you both for doing all that you can for him," the 3rd said before he bowed towards them in respect. "It's our duty as medics to heal and treat all who enter this hospital. There is no need to be so thankful Sarutobi-sama when we are doing what we had to do. We swore that when we took the Hippocratic Oath," Maiho said with a small smile before he and Akiko bowed and exited the room. "Ami-sama, please help Naruto," prayed the 3rd Hokage with closed eyes as he walked towards the exit of the room. "I can only do so much when faced with these unbearable odds. Help me to protect him." "I'm sorry we couldn't protect you," Dog whispered softly as he looked at the blonde boy wrapped in the gauze, bandages, and tape. "I promise to protect you and I will." "Don't worry about it, Dog," Cat whispered to him. "You did what you could. Your sensei knows that you always tried to be with him and protect him." "Thanks, Cat." With that, the 2 Anbu exit the room followed by their colleagues. The 3rd Hokage looked back at the boy before he exited the room. They didn't know of what would happen when the blonde woke up. He would be a new person in everything but personality. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto felt himself regaining consciousness and much to his surprise, he also felt something cool and wet on his back. His eyes soon opened to reveal a dark corridor while the walkway was covered in water. The only sound that can be heard were water drops that made impact to the body of water on the ground. It reminded him of a sewer. What happened? He questioned himself before he got up. Where am I? It looks like a sewer. He started to walk in a random direction with no ideas of how to get out until he heard a sound. It was soft but was similar to a growl of an animal. Curiosity overpowered him as he started to move towards the origin of the noise before he heard it again, but only louder. This continued on until he found a passageway. At the back of the passageway was a massive prison door with a slip of paper stuck to the middle, as if it was the lock to the gate. Unknown to him, the paper had the kanji for seal on it. He approached the gate slowly as the growl continued to grow louder and louder. Suddenly, two large and ferocious eyes opened from within the gates, while a deep voice resonated all around. "Who dares to enter my domain? And Naruto Yu Uzumaki. Ah, my beloved jailer has decided to visit his prisoner. Do you know who I am, child? And no. So the warden doesn't even know the name of his prisoner. How inconvenient. So who are you? Who am I? Who am I?" growled the voice. "I am the destroyer of mountains and creator of tsunamis. I am the gatekeeper of Makai and the defender of the keep. I am the demon lord of the ninth circle. I am Kai Ubi. Hear my roar and tremble at my power mortal." The water shook with every word the demon spoke before it blew away at his roar. Naruto just shook in fear as he looked at the pair of red eyes. It took him a few minutes before he was able to speak again. I've been hurt many times, and they keep on calling me a demon. I hear the whispers behind my back as people talk about me as the demon. Am I a human or a demon? Did I kill those people like they say or not? Who am I?" he asked aloud as his tears start to fall from his eyes before he looked at the demon lord. "Am I a demon like they said?" "No, you are no demon," growled the fox. "I am a demon and you are a human. Then why do they beat me?" he cried. "Why do they constantly call me demon as they hurt me? One being I once knew said that humanity's stupidity is beyond infinite. They do not try and hurt you, but rather try and hurt me." What those worthless humans' belief is that you are me and I am you. They believe that you are me but in the form of a human. Wait, are you saying that you are in me? Yes, but that does not make you a demon. Then what does that make me? I hold you inside my body. The blonde cried. "I am a demon." "Silence yourself, child," growled the Kyuubi. "Just because you contain me does not make you a demon. No, that makes you a Jinchuriki." "A what?" "Jinchuriki is a human prison for an entity. You are one as are a few others, but that does not make you a demon." I guess why you're right. Those villagers are the demons. They hurt a child who has no control over events. My kind treat their young with care, no matter the circumstances. They are the worst kind of human, and I hope to see them in Makai after their deaths. What happens now? First of all, stop stuttering like an idiot. I will do nothing to you as long as you comply with my requests. What are they? You are weak and that reflects on my strength. I will not be weak. You will become strong and then we will see what will happen from there. I don't understand. You are my container and thus represent me in a certain sense. By being weak, it shows that I am weak. You will become strong with my help. How? If you would stop talking then I would be able to explain, snarled the demon and earned a fearful look from the blonde. Because I am a tailed demon, I am able to control the elements and that allows me to call upon certain spirits that can assist you. Why do you want me to be strong? Meet my requirements and only then will I tell you my story. I guess I have no choice then. No, you always have a choice. No one is ever forced to make a decision, but rather they decided to make the decision. I guess I'll accept your offer. Very well then. You need to rip a small part of the seal off the cage so I can do what is needed to be done. You will gain the ability to harness the elements with the help of the spirits. Along with that, you will gain increased senses, stamina, reflexes, and chakra. I also get some things as well through this agreement. Like what? I can hear what you hear, see what you see, taste what you taste, all that jazz. I guess thank you, no one has done so much for me other than the old man and a few others. We will talk again soon, but you need to rip part of the seal so I can begin. But that said, the large red eyes soon disappear from the boy's view. Naruto moved towards the seal before he pulled on it a little bit. It wasn't long before he felt something warm start to surround him. Instantly, wave after wave of power rush out from the cage and slammed into him. All around him, the corridor started to shift into a circular room with the Kyuubi's cage. 5 pillars surrounded him, and it wasn't long before the blonde's curiosity got the better of him. He lightly grazed a stone tower with his finger before it suddenly started to crack. The pillar he touched started to rupture while the other 4 started to fracture. Soon, light started to erupt from the broken pillars and caused the young child to shield his eyes. It wasn't long before the light diminished and revealed 5 figures. He didn't know it at the time, but these 5 were going to become his teachers. Intrigued, Naruto took the time to examine them as soon as he uncovered his eyes. First was Aries, the spirit of the wind. She stood proudly at 5'10" with dirty blonde hair. Her body was covered with a pearl-white kimono that hugged her womanly figure while only showing moderate amounts of cleavage. She had a heart-shaped face while her blonde hair reached down to her back. In Naruto's opinion, the most interesting feature of the woman was her emerald green eyes. They were unique and held warmth and kindness when they looked at him. Next was Velina, the spirit of water. She was shorter than Aries, as she was 5'8", and wore a deep blue kimono. Her hair reached her upper back while they were fanned out in contrast to Ares' ponytail. Her face was almost the same heart shape as the wind spirit but with sky blue eyes that held serenity. What caught the blonde's interest was the woman's blue hair because it felt like it matched the color of his eyes. Then there was Auden, the spirit of lightning. The child was a little scared when he first examined him as the fact that he looked like a demon of some sorts with two curved horns attached to his head. He was covered with a black armor trimmed with a golden yellow, while his skin was like bronze. On his left forearm was something that looked like a shield, while his amethyst-colored eyes evoked fear as they looked into the child's light blue ones. Afterwards was Bahamut, the spirit of fire. Practically, he looked like a dragon-human hybrid with a pair of wings on his back. His skin was a dull gray while he wore a helmet the shape of a dragon's head. His armor was akin to a dark paladin, but only with wings, think Sigrid's armor from the Soul Calibur series, but only black and gray in color. His eyes were slits with golden background and gave the hybrid look feral. Finally, there was Exodus, the spirit of earth. He looked like a large stone golem. Enough said. While Naruto examined the 5 spirits, they also looked at him before they spotted the fear etched on his face. Velina quickly sensed his fear before she stepped forward and wrapped the boy with her aura. It acted as a blanket and the boy almost immediately calmed down. She saw this before she moved towards him and lowered herself to look him in the eyes. "Hello young one, my name is Velina and these are my friends. That's Ares, Bahamut, Auden, and Exodus," she said softly before she looked behind him. "It is an honor to see you again Lord Kyuubi." "I see that you are well Velina," grumbled the beast. "Auden, Bahamut, Ares, Exodus." When the Kyuubi called out their names, they responded with a nod except for Ares and Velina, who bowed. "If I may ask, Lord Kyuubi, why have you called the 5 of us here?" asked Auden. "I summoned the 5 of you here because I have been sealed once again. The kid is weak and thus currently gives me the image of a weakling. You are to train him in your respected arts. We will talk again soon, but I must rest. Summoning you took much out of me." "By your will, Lord Kyuubi," responded the 5 elementals before they turned to face the young blonde boy. "Hello young An. Lord Kyuubi has told you the requirements to begin our training, correct?" said Bahamut, only to receive a confused look from Naruto. "Very well, in order for us to accept you into our training, you must pass our tests. Auden will test your strength. Exodus will look at your resolve. Ares will examine your control. Velina will assess your patience. I will question your heart. Are you ready to face us?" Naruto responded with a nod of his, and Bahamut turned his head to face the other 4 elementals before he gave them a nod. The giant stone golem lumbered forward and faced the boy. "I am Exodus, spirit of the earth, and I will give you the trial of the mind," he stated. "Why do you wish to become a shinobi? What purpose will our training do to your future? Do you wish to feel the victory through the death of your opponents or to bask in the glory of your accomplishments? Do you seek the thrill of a fight against your foes or form an aim in which all will fear? Why is it your dream to become strong?" The blonde started to think deeply about the golem's question. "I wanted to become a shinobi because I eventually wanted to become the Hokage so people would respect me," he thought. "But why do I want to become strong? Is there any reason?" Flashback, Naruto sat on a stool with a bowl of steaming hot ramen in front of him. He was at his favorite place, Ichiraku Ramen, and started to dig into his meal before he heard a chuckle behind him. It wasn't long before the boy turned and found the 3rd Hokage right beside him with a bowl in front of him. "So, how was the ramen?" Sarutobi asked him with a smile plastered on his face. "It was good, like normal," responded Naruto. "Thanks for taking me out today old man." "No problem. I don't like being stuck in the office all day doing work and it's pleasant to actually walk around the village once in a while. Don't you worry old man. Soon I will be the one who will take that hat from you." "Of course you will Naruto," he chuckled before he faced the young boy. "Naruto, do you know why you want to be Hokage?" "Yeah. So that everyone would notice and respect me." "Of course," chuckled the 3rd before he started to eat his bowl of ramen. "But did you know is more to being a Kage than respect?" "Really? What is it then old man?" "In Konoha, shinobi of all genders and rank are what they are today because they want to do one thing. They want to protect those they care about from harm. Whenever they fight with a desire to protect and thus allowing them to wield a strength that those with a desire to destroy or kill do not have. So being a Kage isn't about respect. Respect comes with a position my boy, but respect is earned and not freely given. If you want to the Hokage, what will you fight for?" End of flashback. Gigi said that strength comes from the desire to protect those they care about, thought the blonde before he looked the golem in front of him. "Then that's why I want to become a shinobi. I want to protect." "You have an answer?" Exodus asked before he received a nod. "I want to become a shinobi because I want to be able to protect my family, friends, and my loved ones from harm. I will protect Konoha. So you will still protect them even after the suffering they have caused you. Why? The village is like one big family. There is always going to be arguments and disagreements between people, but in the end, they are still family. You chose wisely. Most would say power or fame that comes with a name, but you did not. You remembered the reason why some of people became shinobi. With your resolve, you will grow strong to do your best to protect and to never give in when the tide goes against you. I, Exodus, give Naruto Uzumaki the blessing of the earth. May it assist his resolve to defend those he loves. Thank you, said the young Uzumaki before he remembered his manners and gave a small bow towards the stone giant, who was replaced with Ares. I'm next. I am Ares, the spirit of the wind, and I will test your control, she said. For me to do so, I must make you relive parts of your memory. I understand that you suffered greatly and I am sorry that I must do this. But that said, she touched Naruto's forehead with her finger and resulted in the blonde's eyes to slowly drift close. All he heard were whispers before his eyes opened once again. Everything around him was gone and replaced with a crowd of people. The whispers soon became clear as they reached his ears and brought forth memories of his past. There it is, I can't believe it is here. Demon. You killed my family. Murdered my wife. Lost my children. Abandoned by the parents. Let's kill the demon. Time to rid this village of your foul presence. Children, don't go near him. He is a very bad child. Soon, the white-colored sky starts to darken into night while people started to appear with blunt objects before they moved towards him. The beating started as the several objects made impact with his skin, leaving large bruises or large cuts that leaked blood. The beating continued and blood maintained its tempo as it flowed from his wounds. Naruto felt turmoil, but he knew that it wouldn't matter what he did, they would just keep on going. He closed his eyes and waited for more to come, but it never did. Instead, he felt something touch his body. His eyes opened to see the long dirty blonde hair of Ares. Her tears rolled down her face as she continued to hug the boy close to her. The warmth engulfed Naruto and he felt something he has never felt before. His short arms wrapped around the waist of the woman as he laid his head on her chest. The feeling left him vulnerable, but this feeling he longed for. Ares laid her head on top the blonde's head as she continued to hold him. No words were spoken for several minutes as the feeling of despair quickly evolved into one of comfort and longing. Slowly, the two blondes let go of each other as they wiped away their tears. Thank you, whispered Naruto. I've never felt that way before, it felt different, yet it feels like something I've been longing for. It was nothing, Naruto, Ares said as she looked at the boy with a smile on her face. I will be here for you. You won't have to be alone anymore like before. Your memories brought me to tears and your emotions were in turmoil, but you controlled them. Emotions are important for all living life along with control. An example is that of anger. When anger is not controlled, it will cause mayhem in its wake. You were able to suppress your emotions to a certain extent. I, Ares, give Naruto Uzumaki the blessing of air. May it help you in your path towards the future. I believe I will give you the next test. I am Bahamut, the spirit of fire, and I will test your strength, Bahamut says as he moves closer to the boy. What is it that you believe? Is there good or evil? Right against wrong? Flashback. Hey old man, Naruto said as he walked into the Hokage's office to find the third Hokage sitting on his chair. Thanks for teaching me how to read. It's helped me with the book I got. It's no problem my boy, Sarutobi replied with a small chuckle. So tell me, what was the book about? I forgot about it. Well, it's about a good guy that beats up a bad guy and then brings peace to the land. Interesting, remember that talk we had a few weeks ago? Yeah, what about it? Here's another thing for you to think about. Is there good and evil in this world? Of course there is, old man. Everyone knows that there is good and evil. True, but what happens when you have to commit a deed of evil for the events to bring good? I don't know. Naruto, in the world of shinobi, we must learn to kill others. But why must shinobi kill? It's murder. True, but the act is necessary as killing your opponent may be your only hope of you and those you protect to survive. You were right when you said that there is good and evil in this world. Greed, lust, thirst for blood, and many others are prime example of that. However, there is a point where the decision between good and evil is simple like black and white. The shinobi killing is an example of that. How? Sometimes, we as shinobi must kill to protect those who are innocent. We feel sadness, guilt, and remorse for doing so, but we find it necessary to protect those whom we love from harm. There comes a point when killing is a bad thing. When you start to enjoy the feeling of blood on your hands, the blood of innocents and many others, then it is an act of evil. Do you understand what I'm saying? I think so. You are saying that while there is good and evil, there are some instances where an act of evil is for good. It's all about intent. Yes, remember these little things Naruto, and you will become a great shinobi one day. Follow what I have told you and someday, you'll be the one with his hat. End of flashback. There is good and evil in this world, Naruto replied. Some acts are evil while others are good. However, sometimes an evil act is necessary for good. It is about the intent of the act. Is that what your heart says? Is that what you believe? Bahamut questioned before receiving a nod. In existence, there has always been good and evil. You truly believe that the existence good and evil is black and white, but there is also shades of gray. The act committed is always about intent. Make wise decisions and listen to your heart, for your future is all about it. I, Bahamut, give Naruto Uzumaki the blessing of fire. May it guide him to his future, wherever it may take him. I believe that it is my test next, Bahamut. I am Velina, spirit of water, Velina said as she moved forward. For my test, you must catch this bunny and bring him back to me. But that said, the bunny appeared several meters away before it ran down a new corridor. Naruto burst out in a sprint to catch the animal that now currently roams his mind. Every few meters of running, he would find himself at an intersection with the corridors going to different directions, and he would choose one of the pathways to go down. After the 11th intersection, he stopped. Where is that thing? He asked himself before he decided to wait and examine his location for clues. Suddenly, he heard of splashing all around him, and it soon started to get louder, as if the source was getting closer to him. It wasn't long before he saw a ball of white at the end of the hallway, and it wasn't long for him to recognize the bunny in all its glory. It ran towards him before it suddenly stopped a few feet away from him. Naruto just stood there with a confused look before he shrugged and held out his hands. The bunny tilted its head in confusion before it stared into the eyes of the blonde boy. Silence soon reigned as the two beings stared into each other's eyes. After several minutes, the bunny suddenly moved forwards before it jumped into the hands of the blonde boy. The boy was surprised at the action, but decided against doing anything rash. Instead, he started to pet the animal as he walked towards his starting location. It took him several minutes to find the chambers, and once he entered, the spirits all looked at him. "Here you go," he said as he handed the white animal to Velina. "One bunny as requested." "An hour and 19 minutes, Velina stated to him. "That was faster than the others I have tested. Most of them failed to catch my bunny, but those that do take around 2 to 3 hours. I assumed to figured out a way to trap him quickly. Actually, he ran towards me and I just waited before he jumped into my hands. What you didn't know was that this was a test of patience," Velina informed him. "Having the patience to wait will bring results that no one would be able to predict. With patience, one will be able to think clearly and come up with a better solution. I, Velina, give Naruto Uzumaki the blessing of water. May it protect him from rashness and impatience. Now comes the true test," Odin said as he moved forward with a smirk that made the blonde shiver. "You will fight me. Give me your best, boy." "Bring it on," Naruto said as he assumed a fighting stance. "With pleasure." But that said, Odin charged towards Naruto at blinding speeds before he punched into his gut. It launched him back several feet. As the blonde attempted to get up, the spirit appeared and slammed him back into the ground before he kicked him. The boy slams into the ground and created a small trench. He slowly rose from the ground before he wiped away the blood on his face. "Ugh," he groaned before he stood up. "Is that all you got? You wish, brat." An elbow slammed into the young Uzumaki's face and caused him to fly into the arm before Odin's other arm slammed him into the ground. The child's body hits the ground. "Don't tell me you're giving up so easily. You are a weakling and this is a waste of time," growled Odin as he started to walk away. "You are weak and you will fail to protect what you find precious. They will be dead and you will not be able to do anything about it." Behind him, the boy struggled to get up while blood continued to leak from his mouth. It took him a few moments to stand up, but his head was angled so that his hair covered his eyes from view. Odin turned at that moment and saw him standing. "So you can still stand. What is your next move?" "I would personally suggest that you give up," taunted Odin. "Just run away and go back to your hole. Run like the coward you are." "What did you just call me? A coward?" Suddenly, a wave of energy engulfed the boy as he charged a lightning spirit with a raised fist. Odin quickly blocked the punch before he dodged another. The blonde boy continued to throw punch after punch, never stopping until Odin disappeared from his view. Suddenly, he felt himself flying through the air before making impact with the ground. He knew that he had no energy left before he tried to push himself up. "Stop it, Naruto, this test has come to its end," Odin said as he walked towards the blonde boy. Naruto just ignored the statement as he struggled to push himself up and continued to fall back down. He knew that he failed, he wasn't strong enough. The tears soon started to fall from his eyes. "Why? Why am I so weak? I'm worthless and weak," Naruto mumbled as he lets the tears fall. "I can't protect my precious people. I'm so weak, so worthless." Odin did not move, but Ares and Velina rushed towards him before they kneeled beside his body. They helped him to a sitting position before engulfing him in a hug. They spoke words of comfort to him as the sounds of his sniffles echoed throughout the area. It took the two female spirits a few minutes before the boy was finally able to look at Odin. The lightning spirit looked down at the blonde as his hardened eyes softened. "Naruto, you have passed my test," he said, resulting in much surprise to the young Uzumaki. "You have proven your strength to me in many ways. You fought me head-on. That was courageous but stupid move. And every time I put you down, you always found a way to get back up." "I wasn't able to get up," Naruto interrupted as his eyes start to leak tears. I wasn't strong enough." "Don't be discouraged," Odin said. Your strength will come over time. You found strength when I mentioned your resolve, and when time comes, that will be your focus. It will be what makes you shinobi. I, Auden, give Naruto Uzumaki the blessing of lightning. May it give him the strength to protect his precious people and hold his resolve true. Suddenly, the 5 elemental spirits glowed with bright colors before it started to grow even brighter. Naruto covered his eyes to prevent himself from being blinded by the light. Unknown to him, the light moved towards the blonde boy before it entered his body. It only lasted a few more minutes before the light finally died down. As Naruto blinked his eyes, he found his vision slowly returning. "It is done," said Baphomet. What's done?" asked the young Uzumaki. "We have given you the energy to begin our training," answered Velina. "Around this chamber, there are 5 kanji representing our respected elements," added Auden as she motioned towards the glowing symbols to the boy. "It is dull and dim to represent the control you have over our elements. Mediocre at best. But as you proceed in our training, it will start to glow brighter until you finish. What happens then? That is for you to find out," Aries said before she saw Naruto's pout. "Train hard, young one," rumbled Exodus. "And you will grow strong to protect. You will become the shield for your loved ones." "Makes us proud," Aries said as she moved to give the boy a hug. "We will help guide you down the right path, but you must be able to make decisions on your own. We will always be here for you," Velina said as she hugged the young Uzumaki after Aries. "We will always be here for you, don't forget that." "Thank you for everything," Naruto said with a smile. "It's no problem," answered Bahamut before he sensed something. "I sense someone near your body outside, an old man I believe." "That's Jiji. He must be so worried," the young Uzumaki said before he started to look around frantically. "Do you know how I can get out of here? This is your mind. I guess just will yourself to wake up." "I'll try that. I guess I'll see you next time. We'll be here for you, so don't you worry." But that said, the blonde faded from the mindscape, leaving the 5 spirits. "He will become strong, there is no doubt about it," said Auden. "I agree," rumbled Exodus. "He is a diamond in the rough, but with enough time, he can be refined to become something truly magnificent." "Is that why you summoned us here, Lord Kyuubi?" asked Velina, only to get no response. "We will ask later on, it must have taken a large amount of energy to call us here," said Bahamut. "Let us retire and plan a schedule for his training." The 5 spectral beings walked out of the circular chambers. They didn't see the pair of slitted eyes that watched everything had occurred. If only you all knew. Reality. It had been several days since Naruto had been admitted to the hospital for injuries that he had received from the severe beatings that almost left him mutilated and maimed. The third Hokage sat right beside the boy that laid on the bed. He visited regularly with hope to see the boy awaken once more, but this day was different from the rest. It began several minutes ago as the boy started to sweat and pant before a bright light encompassed his body. It only lasted a few minutes before being absorbed into his body. The old man started to think about what had just occurred before he heard a soft yawn. His eyes averted to the origin of the sound and found himself to be looking at the sitting boy with outstretched arms. Naruto smacked his lips as if he had woken from a deep slumber. "Hello Naruto," greeted the third Hokage. "Jiji." Naruto cried as he gave the cage a hug. "I'm glad to see you are well. I've been worried about you." "Thank you Jiji, thank you for saving me." "It's no problem. Can ask you a serious question?" "Sure. I'll answer it the best I can. What really happened to the Kyuubi that night?" "What brought this question forth?" asked a surprised Hokage before he looked at the boy. "The fourth killed it during that night." "Why do you ask?" "I met something when I was asleep," answered Naruto. Unknown to the boy, the elder Sarutobi's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "It had said its name was Kyuubi and that we were inside me. It was a dream Naruto-kun. Nothing more. Please Jiji. Please don't lie to me anymore." "Very well," the Hokage said with a sigh before he turned around. "Leave us." Priambus emerged from the shadow before bowing and exiting the room. The third pulled a piece of paper with several kanji on it and slammed it on the wall. It caused a layer of blue to cover the whole room. "Now what has the Kyuubi told you?" asked the old man nervously. "It's a long story Jiji, and I'm not sure you're going to believe me when I tell you. Try me." Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto or any of the themes recognized within the story. Enjoy. Previously on Fate of One. The elements. "I met something when I was asleep," answered Naruto. Unknown to the boy, the elder Sarutobi's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "It had said its name was Kyuubi and that we were inside me. It was a dream Naruto-kun. Nothing more. Please Jiji. Please don't lie to me anymore." "Very well," the Hokage said with a sigh before he turned around. "Leave us." Priambus emerged from the shadow before bowing and exiting the room. The third pulled a piece of paper with several kanji on it and slammed it on the wall. It caused a layer of blue to cover the whole room. "Now what has the Kyuubi told you?" asked the old man nervously. "It's a long story Jiji, and I'm not sure you're going to believe me when I tell you. Try me." Start of chapter 3. Where should I start? The third asked himself while deep in thought. Beginning would be a great place to start, but before I begin, please understand why I had to refrain from telling you about this earlier. You are young and alone, I wouldn't know you would react. Naruto just remained silent. I would spend many of my nights in the office thinking of how to tell you about your burden when you were older without you reacting negatively about it. But it seems that it doesn't matter anymore. I always knew that there was something different about me, whispered the blonde. The constant glares and the hateful things they do to me. I never knew why they hated me so much, but they knew what I held within me. I would always question what I did to deserve the beatings. They always treated me like this since I can remember. You were there to help me, Gigi. You tried to help me as much as you can along with Doggy-san and Kitty-san. You weren't supposed to be treated like this. The Fourth Hokage wanted you to be treated like a hero, said the elder Sarutobi. But the civilians wanted you to be killed for what you held. Somehow, I knew what they were going to do, and that resulted in me passing a law. What law, Gigi? It's an S-ranked law that I made. It was to prevent the council of passing on the information they learned to the citizens of the village. The punishment was death. But somehow, the people learned of my burden. Yes. It wasn't until after a week of constant attacks that I found out what had happened. So I extended the law I created to them. It was to prevent anyone in the future generations from learning of your burden without my or your consent. They always found a way to influence the future generations' thoughts about you, and they eventually learned to hate you. The civilian council always find a way to make your life miserable, and there is nothing the shinobi counselor I can do about it because of your civilian status. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Thank you, Gigi. No, Naruto, I deserve no thanks from you. You do. You tried to help me as you can. You're there when I need you. I should apologize to you, Naruto. I should have taken better care of you. I should have done many things that could have made your life better. The civilian council and the elders have become more influential, Hiruzen said with venom and hate. They took advantage of lame duck period in between the death of the fourth and my inauguration to pass more laws that made them more powerful. I know that you will eventually find something, Gigi, Naruto said with a small smile. You always do. Thank you, my boy, responded the Sarutobi with a smile. Enough of this, let's talk about your furry friend. I'm very curious of the conversation that occurred between the two of you. Well, I met the Kyuubi while I was out, explained Naruto. It sees me as a jailer and a representative of some sorts. How are you a representative? It was something about me being weak reflects on a weak demon lord. So that led to the deal. Very well. I'm curious of this deal. I had to rip part of the seal off. What? Why would you do that? Well, Kyuubi said that it was to allow it to change my body and make it stronger. What are these changes? And what does the Kyuubi get out of all of this? Furball said something about his senses being linked to mine. I get better senses, stamina, reflex, and larger chakra pools. Also, I can use the elements. The elements? You mean elemental chakra manipulations, right? I guess. I mean all they told me I would be able to control the elements, Naruto said with a thinking face. I think they said earth, lightning, fire, air, and water. They are going to be my teachers. Said an excited boy. They said they will help me become strong. Who are these people who told you this? They're my new friends, Gigi. They were Eri-san, Bahamut-san, Auden-san, Exeter-san, and Valina-san. Very unusual names for anyone around here. Do you know where they are from? Questioned the Hokage. I don't know much, Gigi, answered the blonde. Kyuubi summoned them so. Very well. Is there anything else you wanted to tell me, Naruto? Asked the old man to the listening boy before receiving a negative. Well, it appears that the Kyuubi might be telling the truth, but will you let me look at the seal? I just want to make sure that nothing will go wrong. I guess so, Gigi, answered the boy. But where is the seal and how would I show it to you? Well, the seal is on your stomach, and to answer your second question, let me handle that part. I do need you to lift your shirt up. Okay then. Naruto grabbed the bottom of his shirt before pulling up. It exposed his bandaged body and caused a wave of pain to shoot up his nervous system. With his navel now exposed, the third Hokage leaned down and placed his hand on it. He channeled chakra into his hand and it then traveled to the boy's body, revealing an intricate seal. Black lines trailed around the boy's navel in the form of curves, spirals, lines, and kanji. Nothing seems to be out of place with the seal, thought the old man. He seems to have a large amount of chakra for a child his age. I'm not sure if it's because of his heritage or because of the Kyuubi, but I know that he will have a great future ahead of him. It seems that there is nothing wrong with the seal, said the Hokage. Nothing has changed even though you removed a portion of it. Though, if anything does change on the seal, come to me immediately. I will, Gigi, replied the Uzumaki. What is it, Naruto? I want to become stronger. I want to become a shinobi just like you and be able to protect my precious people. Can you help me become strong? I don't know, Naruto. I mean, I do want to help you in any way I can, but that would result in more problems for the both of us. Gigi, you told a long time ago that each shinobi had a purpose for serving. You said that it was the reason why constantly push themselves to become stronger. They would gladly sacrifice themselves in order to allow their purpose to continue. I know what my purpose is. I will become strong and be the shield that protects the innocent and those I care about, the boy said with conviction. Please Gigi, help me become the shield. Are you sure about this, my boy? Questioned the old man. If you start this path, chances are that you won't be able to turn away from it. Are you truly committed on your ideals that you would follow them to the end, no matter where the road leads? Yes. My guess I will allow it, but there will be several things done to ensure that you are following through. What will they be Gigi? First of all, this will be classified as a long-term mission with some of my Anbu. This will be the cover of your training. Next, the Anbu will report your progress to me occasionally, and at the end of every year, you will have a series of tests to evaluate the current level of your abilities. This will be filed on a report that will only be seen by eyes, the third stated seriously. Thank you Gigi, Naruto said with his eyes watery. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. The boy lunged forward and trapped the old man in a massive embrace, ignoring the cry from his wounds from the sudden agitation and movement. The elder Sarutobi just moved his arms to hold the boy and lightly wrapped his arms around the blonde. He felt his robe starting to become wet from the waters coming from the blonde's eyes. A small smile graced the man's lips as he looked through the window into the clear skies. I wish your parents could see you now. They would be so proud of how you're turning out to be. The will of fire burned in them and now you inherited their flame. Now, I believe you need to rest, Sarutobi said to the boy, who winced in pain. You strained yourself too much. We will talk more tomorrow when you are well. I guess, said Naruto as he winced again from the pain. See you tomorrow Gigi. With that said, the young Uzumaki lied down on his bed while the old Hokage stood up from his chair. The blonde child closed his eyes as a small smile graced his lips and the elder Sarutobi silently deactivated the barrier that covered the room before exiting the premises. Few days later, it would take a few days for the young Uzumaki to heal completely from all the wounds he received from the last beating. He remained trapped within the white room of the hospital and faced extreme boredom from the sheer lack of events occurring. A nurse frequently checked on his condition every few hours until today. She had left him alone until he heard the room's door open. His eyes looked towards the opening and found himself staring at two shinobi. They looked the same for the most part, except for certain features like the decoration of the mask and the hair. The first shinobi had on a mask that resembled a dog with gravity-defying gray hair. Most of the features the blonde saw gave him a conclusion that the first shinobi was a male. The other shinobi had a mask that looked like a cat with long purple hair that reached the middle of her back. He instantly knew that the ninja was a female. He was immediately snapped out of his thoughts when the male started to speak to him. Hello Naruto, he greeted. It's nice to see you again. Huh? The blonde asked with a confused look. You don't remember us, huh? Asked a female as she faked a sniffle. I thought you would remember me. It took the boy several seconds before his thoughts lined up and he was able to identify the two beings that stood before him. Doggy-san, Kitty-san. He cried out as he launched himself towards the two and engulfed them in an embrace. Now you remember us, Dog said with a hearty chuckle while he returned the boy's hug. It's been a while since I last saw you guys. What are you two doing here anyway? So we can't visit our favorite blonde ball of sunshine? Asked Cat as she returned his embrace. Well, forget about it, interrupted Dog. Hokage-sama asked us to escort you to his office. Take as much time as you need. We don't need you getting hurt again. I'll be careful, replied Naruto as he slowly pushed himself into a sitting position on his bed. You better be Mr. Cat said sharply. If you hurt yourself because you weren't careful. She left the sentence hanging as the blonde boy on the bed was slowly shivering in fright. He just nodded his head quickly before he grabbed his clothes. The two shinobi exited the room and allowed the boy to dress himself. It would be several minutes later before the blonde boy exited the room wearing a bright orange jumpsuit. Ready to go Naruto? Asked Dog. Ready as I'll ever be. Okay then. Let's go. It would take the two several minutes before they finally reached the cage tower. It was around noontime and the roads were busy with people. As Naruto walked through the busy streets, the two Anbu saw the hateful stares aimed at the boy. Unconsciously, both of their hands started to drift towards their weapons pouch at the sight people hating another being because of a series of unfortunate events that resulted in the boy becoming a Jinchuriki. It only took the group a few minutes before they arrived at the entrance of the cage tower. Upon their entrance into the large cylindrical-like building, the number of glares lessened to a certain degree, as many who resided within the building were shinobi. The group then continued their trek to the Hokage's office. Occasionally, they would pass some civilians who would glare at the boy until they finally reached a set of doors. Right by the door was a woman with a desk in front of her. Her face was buried in the papers, but she could still tell whether someone was in front of her. Good afternoon, do you have a reservation with Hokage-sama? She asked without looking up from her work. Anbu members Cat and Dog escorting Naruto Uzumaki for his 1 o'clock meeting with Hokage-sama, answered Cat. When the secretary heard this, she looked up from her work to see the three figures and just shrugged her shoulders. She pressed a button on her desk and the sound of small gears grinding echoed within the chambers before the door opened. Well, here we are. The Hokage's office. Within the Hokage's office, Garrison Sarutobi was a busy man. He constantly worked almost around the clock because of the constantly growing pile of paperwork. The growth of work eventually led to less time for the old man to do things he desired, like spending his time with his family and reading his favorite novels. Though, throughout the constant hours of work, he still finds some time to be able to sit back and read his orange novel. While he loved his literature dearly, his mind continued to drift towards the young Uzumaki child and the talk that had occurred between them several days ago. I told him that I would help him, thought the old man. But the question is how. I guess the basics is a good place to start, so a book about to access his chakra and also something about chakra control from how big his reserves are right now. Then, there are the 3 jutsus needed for the academy. Other than that, I don't know what else he would need. I just can't give him a taijutsu style because I don't know if his body would be suited for it. And precision with projectile weaponry can only be achieved through practice, and I don't know if he wants to learn how to use any close combat weapons. He didn't notice that the doors to his office were opened by a group of 3 beings and just let out another giggle. Dog silently sniggered behind his mask, while Cat fumed internally over the book that the Hokage had in his hand. Naruto just looked at the old man in front of him. On his desk were towers of papers while the Hokage sat on the chair with a pipe in his mouth and an orange book. A few seconds went by and Cat decided to let out a small cough. Unfortunately, it resulted in the towers of paper to fall down and buried the old cage alive. He crawled his way out of the mountain of documents and glared at the 2 sheepish-looking Anbu. His glare softened when he spotted a boy with blonde hair standing in between the 2. "Hello, Naruto. I'm quite in the predicament, but that won't stop us from having our talk," greeted the old Hokage while glaring at the 2 Anbu members. "How are you this fine day?" "I'm feeling much better than before," Naruto answered. "Especially since I got out of the hospital. Do you need help, Jiji?" No. I'm fine, but thank you for the offer," chuckled the third before he looked at the other 2 beings that stood by the boy. "Dog, Cat, you are both dismissed. We will be talking later about certain subjects." They nodded before disappearing in a cloud of white smoke. "Let's make sure no one can hear us first," said the Hokage as he activated the privacy seal. "Now Naruto, I have thought about our conversation quite a bit and I have several ideas on what I can get you, but I don't know what else. Do you have anything specific in mind? Something you wish to learn?" "Let me think for a second, Jiji." "Naruto? Huh? Who said that? What is it, my boy?" "Naruto, it's Bahamut," said the spirit. "We were working the last few nights to establish this link with you so we can communicate with each other." "That's so cool." The Sarutobi just looked at the boy with confusion as he watched the blonde speak. He didn't know that he was holding a conversation with the beings within his body. "Just think what you want to say, my boy." "Oh, okay. So what is it that you need, Bahamut-sensei?" "We were able to finish planning our curriculum." "What's that word mean, sensei?" "What we're going to teach you." "Anyway, ask the Hokage to tell you what he was going to give you." "Okay, sensei." "Naruto, you awake?" asked a third as he waved his hand in front of the blonde boy who started to blink a few times. "Are you back with us in the land of the living?" "Yeah, I'm back, Jiji," replied the boy. Jiji, sensei wanted to know what you were going to give me. The only things I could think of was a how-to book about accessing your chakra, basic control, and academy jutsus. I couldn't really think of anything else because of certain variables." He turned to see the confused look on the boy's face. The old man started to go over what he said and mentally hit himself. Variables are things that can't be determined right away. Like I couldn't give you a taijutsu style because I don't know which would suit you the best. "Oh, okay, I guess I understand. So what does your sensei need for me to give you?" "Those are acceptable pieces of material, but you will also need." "Digi, he said that I need some stuff on the basics of genjutsu, forging, anatomy, cooking, and chakra sensing. He also said the scroll for what's it called again? Shadow clone jutsu. The jutsu scroll on shadow clone jutsu." The old Cage wrote down all the things that were said, but as the last item entered his ears, his head snapped up to look at the boy. "Are you sure that is the name of the jutsu?" "Yeah, that's what sensei said." "Is there a problem with that?" "That jutsu is labeled a B-rank kinjutsu from the fact that it requires a large amount of chakra to create a clone. When solid clones are made, they each have an equal fraction of chakra. Its counterpart was labeled an A-rank kinjutsu for the exact reason. Some people have actually died because of the chakra needed to use these jutsus. Sensei said that it wouldn't be problem because of something that is in my chakra. He said that it isn't the Kyuubi's chakra and that you would understand what I'm talking about. Do you know?" Hiruzen's face hardened quickly as the boy mentioned it. He knew what the boy sensei was talking about because the female Uzumaki mentioned it to him when she married the fourth Hokage. "I'll get the items that you need." With that, the Hokage quickly left the room. His thoughts raced through his head as he started to piece the information together. It wasn't long before he reached the cage's library. His hands quickly flew through the scrolls as he grabbed a few and placed them in a pile. I can't believe that Naruto already activated that portion of it, Sarutobi thought as he looked at the scrolls in front of him. They both said that there was a small possibility that it would activate because of the differences in their origin, but somehow, at least one of them is active within him. Knowing the boy's ability of being unpredictable, I'm willing to bet that the other one is either active or is close to it. I guess I better give him those scrolls as well just in case it is true. With that thought, he pulled out several more scrolls and placed them on the growing pile. So far, there's how to channel your chakra for dummies, controlling your chakra, forging for beginners, basic guide to cooking, the human body, the basics for Genjutsu, Minato's guide to sealing, and the 4 scrolls from both his parents. Somehow, I have a feeling that he will follow their path and become as great as them. Hell, he has the potential to become greater than they were. I hope you're both watching. The Kage grabbed the pile of scrolls and books before placing them in a bin. He carried it back to the office, where he found the boy sitting on his chair while looking out towards the Hokage monument. His eyes held a look he had seen several times when he looked at Minato. He chuckled quietly, but it was loud enough for Naruto to notice his arrival. "Hey Gigi," greeted Naruto before he noticed the bin filled with items. "How's the view?" asked the old man as he placed the bin on the desk. "It's great, but the view from the top of the monument is better." "I couldn't agree more. I've been there several times with my team back in the day. I know that Asuma loved the view when I brought him up there when he was still a child. You will become a Kage someday, Naruto. You have the potential and I have a feeling that your achievements will become unparalleled. I just hope that I will still be around to see that day." "Same here. Anyway, here are the things that you asked. I added a few more scrolls in there," said the Hokage as he pointed towards the 2 pale blue and 2 dark crimson scrolls. "These 4 scrolls are very important and all I ask is that you allow me to keep them until I deem that you are ready to learn of their secrets." "Sure thing Gigi. Well, come back tomorrow and I'll give these all to you." "Pack your things, Naruto," said the Kage, which earned him a confused look from the boy. "Tomorrow, you will be shown your second home and I promise you that it will be safer than your current one right now. Also, your training will begin. We will discuss this tomorrow." "Thank you Gigi." "It is no problem, Naruto." The old Kage released the privacy seal and allowed the boy to exit the office. The next day came quicker than the boy could ever anticipate. His night consisted of him within his mindscape where he learned more about his senseis. Apparently, Aries was a maiden during the ancient era of the land. She had a pure heart and gentle soul like the soft breeze on a windy day, but when she was angered, she was as dangerous as a hurricane. This fact scared the blonde boy, but the female spirit reassured him that she would not do anything like that to him. During her time alive, she lived in Land of Wind where the forests and wildlife thrived until Shukaku came. Shukaku, also known as the Ichibi no Shukaku, was the demon lord of the first circle and was deadly in the arts of wind and sand. It was through his power that the forests of the Land of Wind became the modern day's deserts. Next was Valina. She was a princess from the ancient era and nicknamed the Princess of the Eternal Blue for 2 reasons. The first was because her hair and eyes constantly reminded everyone of the ocean. The second reason was because she always tried too close to water, as if she was constantly drawn to it. During her life, she was respected for her fairness to all whom she ruled and cared for who live in her kingdom. One day, her kingdom was attacked and the tower in which she resided broke, causing it to fall into the endless sea with her trapped within. Exodus was a man whose came generations after the ancient era, which soon became known as the Era of the Forgotten, because of the lack of information found about it. He served as a paladin who rode throughout the countries to help defend the innocents from the dangers. It eventually led to his alias of Angel's Guard, which eventually led to Guardian of Stone for his ability to take anything thrown at him. He was well respected all throughout the land for his judgment of the despicable until he met Bahamut on the road. The two eventually became friends after several more encounters, in which led to the decision of both of them traveling together. They fought together for years until they were assaulted with an army 2,000 strong. It would be several days of combat before a decisive victory could be seen. The army was slaughtered, but the wounds that had been inflicted on both warriors eventually led to their deaths. Bahamut was also a man from the Era of the Forgotten. He served as a knight in an order called 13 Dragons, where he served as the 5th. He was renowned for his courageousness in combat, pure determination in fights, and bloodlust. This eventually formed his alias of Bloody Maw because of the blood that covered him in his fights. All his enemies would see was the red glint of his dragon-shaped armor before dying. It would years later that he met Exodus in a tavern. The two found many things in common between them and they became acquaintances. Several run-ins later, the two became inseparable. The last thing that he did was slaughter an army with Exodus beside him before he succumbed to his wounds, not knowing that his friends would follow soon after. Finally, there was Auden. He was different from the rest because he came several centuries after the era of the Forgotten, in a time period called the era of Retribution. He was a samurai with unmatched skills using his katana or his double-sided sword in an S shape. It was frequently used one-handed in coordination with a shield, but it can be split in half to form two blades. During his life, he followed his code until he met a demon. The beast emerged out of nowhere and attacked a city. He attacked the demon and wounded it, making it stop its assault. This transformed him into a demon hunter. He slain many demons, armies would fall in a matter of hours. It was once said that he killed many using a unique move called Zantexican. He was eventually casted into Makai after he killed a greater demon. He wandered the plains until he was cursed by a devil, eventually turning him into a demon. When asked by the blonde boy if it was possible for him to learn such a technique, Odin answered that it would only be taught to those he found worthy. The boy started on his morning rituals after he finished mentally organizing his thoughts from the night before. His routine started with a workout that consisted of push-ups, sit-ups, and mountain climbers. After his workout, he ate his breakfast that consisted of some toast and milk that remained untouched for a few days. The dishes were washed soon after before he cleaned himself and put on a clean set of clothes on. As he headed towards the door, he grabbed his bag that contained some of his valuables that his constant attackers weren't able to find. It wasn't long before he arrived at the cage tower. He sped up the stairs and greeted the secretary, Mika Onomi, before he entered the Hokage's office. As soon as he entered the room, he spotted the old man furiously working through the large pile of paperwork with no sign of stopping soon. The old Hokage worked through the paper so fast, it seemed that smoke started to emerge from the top of the writing utensil. Inside the boy's mind, the five spirits just sweat drop as they watched the scene in front of the boy. Is he even reading those papers? Asked Exodus. It would be safe to assume he might have read a few of them, but skip the rest, answered the spirit of lightning. Do you think we should help him? Asked Bahamut. I mean, he did want Naruto here for a reason. I guess we should, answered Velina before she connected with the blonde boy. Hey Naruto. Yes sensei. Responded the Uzumaki. I think you should help the Hokage out with his problem. How? I mean, I don't even know how to deal with that much paper. I'm even pretty sure that they are copying themselves every second. First, get his attention and tell him you know how to deal with his problem. Okay. Hey Gigi, Naruto greeted with a wave. Hello there Naruto, I would love to chat but as you can see, responded the Hokage before he gestured to the pile of papers around him. I have a lot of work to finish. But, give me a few minutes Naruto. Gigi, can we talk later? Gigi. I know how to deal with your paper problem. The Hokage just blinked a few times as he stared at the panting boy in front of him. A disbelieving look was plastered on the man's face. What, you know how to defeat the Bane of the Cages? Bane of the Cages? Yes. These blasted pieces of paper. Ranted the third Hokage. I swear that they are duplicating by the dozens just to make sure that I don't finish. I know for a fact that the other cages have to deal with this problem as well. These are demons. Wow, I didn't know that it was this bad. Naruto, I know for a fact that even the gods and goddesses have to deal with paperwork except at a greater scale when compared to the cages, said Ares. That must suck. Well, how do I defeat my mortal enemy? This better not be a prank, or else I want to rid myself of this demon. Well, why don't you use the shadow clone jutsu, answered Naruto. Shadow clone jutsu? Mumbled the old man. Of course. Thank you my boy. You just saved me from a terrible fate. What are you talking about Gigi? I guess that you haven't read the scroll about this jutsu. Well, the shadow clone jutsu is a special clone jutsu. It was labeled a kinjutsu for two reasons. The first is the chakra needed to be able to make a clone, and the second is the mental feedback. What? Whatever this clone learns is automatically sent back to you, the original. It's very useful during missions. I suggest that you read it when you can as it will be vital for your training, said the old Hokage, receiving a nod from the blonde boy. Now, since you helped me defeat this monstrosity, I will gladly like to repay you. Is there anything you need, my boy? I don't know Gigi. I mean I need stuff to help me train, but other than that, I can't think of anything. Well, if anything comes to mind, don't be afraid to ask as long as it is within reason. Okay thanks Gigi. Is that all? I believe so, answered the elder Sarutobi with a small smile. Going off to start your training, Naruto? Yup. I don't want to let you down. As part of our agreement, you will have an Anbu with you to ensure your progress. He will be the one to bring me the reports of your progress. As for the examinations, let's say that they will be every year. Your file will be kept hidden to all eyes except mine until the time has come to reveal yourself. The Anbu I assigned you will meet you at the market district so you can buy your supplies. Speaking of, which of the training grounds will you be using for your training? Snake-chan's playground. I like going there a lot since it always kept me safe. What? The word echoed all around the room. Saratobi remained still in shock as he looked at the blonde boy who just informed him of his constant entrance and training ground 44, Aka the Forest of Death, and one of the most dangerous locations in the Land of Fire up to date. The Anbu stationed all around the room couldn't help but stare at the young Uzumaki when he voiced his claim. It was considered to be impossible to go into the area by oneself and come out alive. The only person to do that was Anko Mitarashi, also known as Snake. Not even the famous Itachi Uchiha, Aka Weasel, went into the forest without someone with him. "Are you sure, Naruto?" asked a very timid Hokage. "That area is very dangerous for many reasons. There is a reason why very few people go in there alone." "Hi Gigi. Snake-chan is almost always there with me. She played me a few times, and since I have your awesome ninja with me, I won't get hurt." "Alright then," said the third with a sigh. "Just promise that you will be safe. I don't anything happening to you because I allowed you to train there. I promise you, Gigi. I'll be careful with what I do." "Very well. Go along now. That Anbu member will meet you soon," he said before he faced the pile of papers as the boy left the office. "Now to defeat you, you vile vermin." The multiple copies of the third Hokage leapt at the large stacks of paper with malicious intent in his eyes as he daydreamed about standing on top a mountain of signed papers while large flames roared in the background. His dream self dove into a nearby mountain of books of orange Icha books before starting to read. Streets of Konoha. In the middle of the busy streets of Konoha, Anbu operative Bear walked down the merchant district, but something was different about him. He felt exposed to the world for several reasons. The first reason was because he was wearing a standard Jonin uniform that consisted of a masked green flak jacket with a black long-sleeve shirt underneath, black shinobi pants with white tape wrapped around his right thigh, and a pair of shinobi sandals. He looked like a normal shinobi with short black hair and egg-shaped face. He was deep in thought as he reminisced about all the things he has done. Throughout his time as a shinobi, he had completed a large variety of missions, ranging from simple C rank to difficult S rank, and yet, none of them could compare to his current one. His last mission was a simple C rank mission to take out a bandit camp at the borders. When they arrived at their destination, they found the camp, but instead of bandits, they found rather strange creatures. They disappeared into the shadows a minute later, leaving the group of Anbu alone. So when the Hokage called him for his next mission, he was certain that he wouldn't be surprised. Flashback. Bear entered the Hokage's office to find several copies of them all around the room working on the stacks of paper. The towers of paper were slowly being cut down in size quickly as the copies read and signed the papers. The Anbu agent coughed softly, grabbing the attention of the busy cages, and forced him to pause his work. Rather, the original paused while the clone started to work again. "Ah Bear. I know this might be rather short notice, but I require for you to do this mission," the Hokage said as he picked up a nearby scroll. "It's a high A rank, maybe even S rank long-term mission should you accept. I have several reasons why I have chosen you for this mission." "Of course, Hokage-sama," answered the Anbu before he grabbed the scroll and opened it to read its contents. "Hokage-sama, are you?" "I am very sure of my decision, Bear. I believe that by doing this, it will help him survive in the future. It may deprive him a childhood that he deserves, but no child deserves to live the life he was forced to live." "Of course, Hokage-sama. Do you know how long this mission may be?" "It will depend on his progress. But do you understand your mission?" "Of course, Hokage-sama. My mission is to act as a messenger between you and Naruto-san, but to also act as a teacher for him. I am not allowed to wear my Anbu equipment or anything that will connect me to my Anbu identity of Bear. I will also receive A rank pay every week to pay for my own necessities until I can go on my own missions again." "Good. There is also a good chance that Naruto may know that you are Bear even though you don't wear your mask, so don't be surprised if he finds out. Do you understand what you have to do?" "Yes, Hokage-sama." "Good. You are to meet him at the market district. Here is some money. Get him some equipment and better clothes, preferably proper shinobi attire." The Kage handed the Anbu a wad of bills before he exited the room to fulfill the answer. Then flashback. "Pat was so furious when I told her that she had to deal with all of my work while I was off, in addition to hers thought the Anbu member as a picture of his cat masked teammate flashed through his mind. I was lucky that dog senpai was there or else." His thoughts drifted off as his eyes caught sight of a mop of blonde hair right beside a store he knew very well. It wasn't just him though. All Anbu, most Jonin, and some Chunin knew that this store was the place to go for all types of shinobi items that range from the basic kunai and shurikens to Anbu combat armor. He walked closer to the boy to find him deep in thought as he looked at the certain item on display. Upon further inspection, Bear saw that it wasn't an item, but rather several items. The first is a red belt sash that went around the waist with 5 holsters for weapons on the left and right side. The second item was a shoulder plate with 5 holsters attached to the back of it. Finally, the last item consisted of similarly shaped knives that were a little longer than a kunai, but not as long as a foot-long dagger. It was also slightly thinner from an average kunai that gave the impression of a more silent flight as it spins towards its target. The Anbu turned his gaze from the weapon to find that Naruto's gaze still lingered on the items. He let out a small cough, loud enough for the blonde boy to turn towards him. Bear examined the boy to find his eyes bore into him with a calculating look while his body stance showed tension as he was ready to move at a moment's notice. "Hello there, Naruto," greeted the unmasked Anbu, leading to a discreet yet shocked look on the blonde's face. "Don't be frightened, young one. Hokage-sama sent me as per the agreement." "Ah, okay." Naruto replied as a relieved expression graced his face before it transformed to one of happiness. Can you tell me what your name is?" "The name is Yamato." "Okay, thanks Yamato-san. Let's go then. I was just looking at what they had." "Wait, first I want you to tell me what you think about those knives you were looking at." Well, they were interesting in how they looked. Much different from the average kunais. It might fly better than a kunai." "Why do you ask?" "Hokage-sama gave me some money so you could get some tools and supplies to help you." "Really? Thank you." Yamato just chuckled as he followed the blonde boy into the shop. "Hello, welcome to the Dragon's Den," greeted a store clerk. "How may I help you today?" "We're here to get some supplies for a future shinobi," Yamato replied, which earned him a nod from the clerk before he looked at Naruto. "I think it would be best for you to go get the things you think you might need or want. Remember, you need to get some training clothes and also clothes for travel. Then, don't forget that basic shinobi tools like kunais, shurikens, and other things that you might need." But that said, Naruto slowly walked deeper into the store. His first stop was the clothing section and after he looked around, he selected his clothing. It consisted of several fishnet shirts, some dark-colored shirts, a few shorts, numerous dark green combat pants with multiple pockets, and an abundant amount of long-sleeve shirts that varied in color. Along with these articles of clothing were several sets of steel-toed combat boots, a large quantity of socks, and a small amount of gloves, both normal and fingerless. During his clothing spree, he found himself staring at the items at the display before he sighed and walked away. Unknown to him, an old man had spotted him there before he walked away. On the other side of the store, Yamato was going around and picked up Naruto's shinobi tools. This included several sets of kunais, shurikens, senbons and weights for wrist, ankles, and torso. 7 sets of moss green flak jackets also found their way to the pile, along with several instruction books and weapons pouches that range from the circular ones for the waist to the rectangle ones for the thighs. He had seen Naruto looking at the display while he was grabbing the weights before he left. Unknown to Yamato, Naruto had migrated back to the display while an old man had started to move towards him. "Hello there, child," he said, scaring the blonde boy out of his wits. "Oh hello," he responded with some fear. "You don't have to be afraid of me, my boy. However, I noticed that you were rather interested in those throwing knives over there." "Of course sir. They seem very different from the other weapons here. I just wonder why no one else is interested in them." "They're special weapons, young one. They are specifically used for throwing, but it can also be used for close combat if needed. It's just that other shinobi seem to favor a more multi-purpose weapon like a kunai better. Plus, they also believe that the shurikens are more effective and balanced better when compared to these items." "I don't think I agree with them on that." "And why do you say that?" asked the old man with curiosity. "I don't know. It just looks like that those knives are better balanced than that kunai over there," answered the blonde as he pointed at the kunai a few feet away. You have a good eye kid. The name's Kenshin, proud blacksmith and maker of that fine set of weapons on display." "Oh. I'm very honored to meet you sir," Naruto said before he bowed. "Now that you know my name, can I learn yours?" asked Kenshin with a voice that reminded Naruto of the third Hokage. Naruto Uzumaki. "Naruto eh? A strong name Maelstrom if I'm correct," said the man out loud. "Anyway, since you're the first to be interested on those items of mine, I'll make a deal with you, kid. Do you want to become its first owner?" "I would love to," answered the blonde boy with excitement. You remind me so much of someone I used to know a long time ago," laughed Kenshin. "Anyway, tell your friend of yours to gather all of your purchases and follow me." Naruto ran through the store before he met Yamato. The boy relayed the message and sped off before Yamato could utter a word. Yamato just sighed before he created a clone to assist him in carrying the many items. He meets the blonde boy at a doorway with an old man right beside him. The old man opened the door and ushered the group of 3 through it. "Now, let's talk about our deal," started Kenshin before being interrupted by Yamato. "What deal?" he asked with narrowed eyes. "It's nothing serious lad," said Kenshin as he twirled one of his hands. "It's just for the items on display. I believe your young charge here might have the ability to use them to their full potential. You see, I believe that the younger generation of shinobi care more about how impressive a jutsu is instead of their purpose, no offense to you." "None taken," replied Yamato with a shrug. "I would agree with that statement to a certain extent." Naruto, the act of killing can be achieved with the use of a weapon, whether it be a blade, your fists, or a jutsu. What I want for my part of the deal is for you to use the weapons you have effectively. Don't be flashy and act to impress people. You are going to be a shinobi, a trained killer, and killers strike when the time is right quickly and effectively. Any items you purchase from here will be discounted if you promise to use my weapons to their maximum potential. Sure. I would be honored. But that said, the old man went further into the room before he returned with multiple cases of varying sizes. He placed them on a nearby table before he opened them one by one. Okay, here we go, Kenshin said with happiness. A full set of armor along with several cases of throwing knives. Why don't you try it on? With a shrug, Naruto stepped forward to the first case to spot a rather large metal shoulder plate with several straps on them. He took it from its resting place and held it in place on his right shoulder as Kenshin worked with the straps that went from his shoulder plate to the left side of his waist before going back up on the backside. It would take a minute or two before it was fully strapped down and tightened down. Naruto moved the next case and grabbed a belt 5 to 6 centimeters in width. He wrapped it around his waist before tightening it. After he found it satisfactory, he backed up a meter or so and examined himself on a nearby mirror. There we go, said Kenshin before he stepped back to examine his work. Look at you now, kid. Now we have a real shinobi on our hands now. How are they? Pretty good actually, answered Naruto as he continued to look at his reflection. Great. On the back of the shoulder plate and along the sides of the belts are holsters for the knives. Practice using them. They are different when compared to a kunai. And also, I sometimes create new things here and there. If you happen to stop by every year or so, I might have something for you if you prove to me that you mastered the items I gave you first. Now why don't we take those off of you and pay for all of these items so you can be on your way. Yamato, Naruto, and the Yamato clone agreed before they unstrapped the blonde's equipment off of him before they placed them back into their respected cases. Well, the grand total is 264,374 ryu for everything including the discount, said the old man before Yamato pulled out a piece of paper and handed it to him. Ah, a voucher from the Hokage. Well, let me get all these things sealed for you so you can be on your merry way. It would be a few minutes before all items purchased would be sealed away and Naruto took this as an opportunity to change. He was able to grab a set of clothes and went into a dressing room. He exited with his horrendous orange jumpsuit in hand. A solid black long sleeve paired with black shinobi pants and a pair of steel-toed boots now covered his body. The orange jumpsuit, on the other hand, was tossed into the nearest dumpster after the duo exited the building with a storage scroll containing their purchases in hand. The two walked down the streets, learning more about each other as the minutes go by. An interesting fact that Yamato learned was that Naruto often came to the Forest of Death to play with Snake, who he knew was Anko. They arrived to the conclusion that the frequent visits to the forest must mean that the boy knew it like the back of his hand. The shinobi's thoughts were proven true as the blonde boy led them through the barbed gates of the training grounds before entering the thicket of wildlife. The sounds of wildlife echoed all around the duo as they continued to walk through the forest until they reach a rather large clearing after an hour passed. Sunlight broke through the dense layers of leaves of the trees. Yamato just looked at the empty space before he spotted the smile on the boy's face before he had started to walk forward. Naruto suddenly vanished from his view, completely surprising Yamato. Unsure what was about to happen, he tightens his hold on the scroll while his other hand drifted into his pouch before pulling out a kunai. He walked forward several yards before feeling something strange. He shrugged it off as he looked at his surroundings. In front of him was a large wooden house. What is this place? He asked with a surprised look as he examined the surrounding area. How can nobody see this place? This is Snake-chan's house. Naruto said with a smile on his face. I helped her build it whenever I had time. It wasn't just me though. She had some other people help her too. Then she told me she got someone to write on the wall so no one can see it unless they pass that invisible wall. This is pretty interesting place. Still, I better let Snake-san that we will be using her house for an indefinite period of time, Yamato informed him. Also, I have to attend a meeting with my colleagues and report back to Hokage-sama. Said Naruto with a confused look on his face. Sorry, why don't you try and learn the shadow clone jutsu so you can begin your training, suggested the shinobi before he vanished via Shunshin. Training montage with Eye of the Tiger by Survivor playing in the background. Naruto reads the book, How to Access U-Chakra for Dummies, before attempting to do so after completing the book. 1 hour done, he makes the cross hand sign for the jutsu before looking at the scroll that lays on a stump in the middle of the clearing. Chakra surges into the hand sign before a cloud appears, only to show a pale, sick-looking clone with color faded in most areas and some body parts missing. 3 hours done. Panting from exhaustion, Naruto looks at his most recent attempt to find that it is still missing some parts, but the color is mostly there. Making the hand sign again, he uses the shadow clone once more. 5 hours done. The blonde leans against one of the large trees while panting loudly. He tries to perform the jutsu again, only to find himself blacking out and traveling back to the realm of unconsciousness for the third time within the training session. 7 hours done. Training montage over. After training, ugh, thought Naruto as he struggled to push himself up. That was intense. I don't think I'll be able to get to bed now. But that thought, the blonde collapsed against a tree he had been laying against before he entered the land of dreams. It would be an hour before Yamato appeared from a swirl of leaves. Kat really chewed me out, sighed Yamato. Maybe I shouldn't have given her all that work. Earlier in the day, Kat had spent over an hour chewing him out because of the large amount of work she gained because he was on a special mission for the Hokage. She complained that she had to do 2, maybe even 3 times more paperwork because of him. Fortunately, the Hokage summoned him, providing him with an escape from the fuming Anbu operative. During his meeting with the Hokage, he practically told the old man all the events that occurred between the beginning of the mission until he left Naruto at the household. He only received a nod from the Hokage before being dismissed. Finally, before he went back to the forest, he was able to find Anko and told her about the usage of her house. He told her all the details of the mission. Now where is Naruto? He thought to himself before he spotted the blonde boy against a tree with eyes closed. I should have guessed. He wore himself out from all that training. The Anbu operative moved towards the boy before picking him up and bringing him inside the house. He laid the blonde on a bed before placing the covers over him. 6 a.m. the next morning, Naruto found himself feeling something soft covering his body, in contrast to the hard surface of the tree he fell asleep against. His eyes opened quickly as his body shot up from his current position. He expected to wake up in the forest, but much to his surprise, he found himself within a house. His body got off the soft item below him and headed towards the nearby table. On the wooden furniture was a large package with a piece of parchment attached to it. His hands grabbed the letter and brought it closer to his eyes. Dear Naruto, if you're reading this, then that means that you woke up and I'm not there. I just got called back to the HQ because of a large emergency. If you're wondering how you got into the house, I brought you in yesterday when I found you against a tree. You need to be careful when you train next time. You were suffering from severe chakra exhaustion, meaning you wasted a large amount of chakra and leaving your body barely any. This is a problem because it will eventually lead to your death if you're not careful, so please be careful next time. I know that you have a large amount of stamina, but you haven't worked your chakra system as much, so take it slow. Because of that, I recommend that you don't exhaust yourself and read some of the scrolls you got. You can use some of your chakra to make a few clones, and they will help you train. Read the scroll if you don't understand what I mean. By the way, when we were at the store, I had a feeling you would need these for later. Inside the package is a pair of wooden bokens. Don't do anything stupid and I should be back tonight. Yamato. Naruto placed the letter down and opened the package to reveal the 2 wooden swords. The blonde grabbed a hold of one before he gave it an experimental swing. His eyes caught sight of the small pile of scrolls at the center of the table. With a sigh, he placed the boken down before heading into the kitchen. His eyes found a plate filled with bacon, eggs, and has potatoes along with a large cup of milk. The food disappeared 10 minutes later as a filled blonde boy patted his stomach. With a full stomach, he grabbed the topmost scroll on the pile and opened it. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Rank. B. Type. Kenjutsu. Description. The jutsu allows the user to create solid copies of the user. The clones use the amount of chakra used and divides it with each clone made, allowing each to perform a couple of C-rank jutsus or a handful of B-rank jutsus before having to rely on non-chakra-based attacks. These clones will dispel after one hit. Warning. The user must have at least mid-chunin reserves before trying to attempt this jutsu, or it will result in a severe case of chakra exhaustion that has the possibility of death. Caution. This clone jutsu allows for the original to learn the information gathered by the clones once they are dispelled. It is highly recommended to dispel the clones in groups at an interval of several minutes. By dispelling all the clones at once, it will possibly result in brain damage that can range from severe headaches and trauma to melting the brain and death. So that's what Yamato-san meant when he said that my clones would be helpful, thought Naruto as he placed the scroll down. Better not strain my chakra system that much, but I should be able to make a few clones. His fingers made a cross before several clouds of smoke appeared and quickly dissipated to reveal a group of 10 Naruto clones. Before the original could say a word, the clones each grabbed a scroll from the stack and headed to a different location of the house. The original, on the other hand, could only watch as the group dispersed without a single verbal command from him. I believe that you wanted them to read the scrolls thoroughly, correct? Asked Exodus, earning him a mental nod from the blonde boy. Well, since you were thinking of their command, it transferred to them and thus resulted in the clones knowing what to do. That's so cool, thought the blonde boy with excitement. Indeed. They will become even more useful later on when you have a larger chakra system. More clones means more to use for learning new skills that could eventually be helpful on the field. Also, once we have deemed that you have a basic grasp on chakra, we will begin teaching you what we know, starting from the basic. Of course, Exodus-sensei. Time skip. Several days later, Naruto spent the last few days reading the scrolls on basic knowledge on human anatomy, cooking, and other things. Every day, his would summon his group of clones, unknown that they were growing in number every time, and they would take their respected scrolls to read and reread the information they learned. Yamato would come back to the house every night to find the clones of the blonde working on different things that range from memorizing to jutsu stances to learning basic chakra control. A minor thing that the original noticed about the clones was that each clone held an imperfection, but it wasn't enough to keep the clones from learning from the scrolls they had. It took him a week to make clones with no defections, and because of his clones constantly working on chakra control, the amount of clones tended to increase 1 or 2 every day. The increase in quantity would constantly confuse the blonde until the 3rd day. During his time reviewing over the readings, he discovered that improvement in chakra control would result in less consumption of chakra for jutsus. Upon this discovery, Naruto placed more clones on learning and mastering chakra control to further help the progress. Unfortunately, his chakra control only improved a small amount every day, even though he had around half of the clones he summoned working on it because of his rather large and still growing chakra circulatory system. Some clones would work on hunting and trapping some of the wild animals found in the forest, while other clones would clean, season, and cook the food. The original spent his time working on making his body physically stronger. It started off with stretches before taking a few laps around the clearing and completing several sets of sit-ups, push-ups, mountain climber, and pull-ups. This workout wore the blonde down greatly, but it slowly became easier after several days of following this routine. Yamato, on the other hand, would frequently leave before daybreak and return before sunset to find the clones finishing up on their training. The clones would dispel in small groups at intervals of 15 minutes, and once they were all gone, Yamato entered the house. The adult and child spent their time together eating and talking about random subjects and getting better acquainted with each other. This became a routine for the blonde boy. Several days later, the blonde boy stood in the middle of a clearing near the house as sweat poured down his body. He was barely able to lift his arms, but upon close examination of the boy, there was evidence that weights wrapped around his wrists. He walked slowly towards the house, slowly dragging his feet as if he bore the world on his shoulders. Once he entered the household, he flopped down on a nearby chair before he ripped off his training shirt, allowing the world to see his muscles. The amount of training he did accompanied with the healthy food he ate allowed him to lose some of his baby fat. His arms held a considerable amount of muscle for his age because of his training. With an exhausted sigh, the blonde boy unhooked several items that wrapped around his arms, legs, and torso, allowing them to slam into the floor. He felt a slight headache as some of his clones dispelled and transferred their memories of certain skills to him, skills such as holding and throwing one of his throwing knives, trap making, cooking, and other such things. Naruto. Yes, sensei, thought the tired blonde shinobi. The others and I have talked. We believe that you are ready for our training. Are you sure, sensei? I mean, I still have much to learn. You have learned how to access your chakra a few days ago, and you are currently focusing it. With your rather large reserves, we should be able to start training you even with your inadequate chakra control. Of course, sensei. Time skipped to the end of the year. From that day on, Naruto created 6 new groups for his new subjects. 5 were for each one of his senseis and their respected elements, while the last one is for independent subject. Each one of his senseis spent a few months teaching him the basics of elemental manipulation for their respected elements in conjunction with other skills. Bahamut was in the process of teaching him the basics of Kenjutsu, Valina started to introduce him to medical jutsus, Exodus instructed him on forging, Ares proceeded to train him in the art of free running and Parker, while Laden started to educate him with the usage of the spirit's unique weapon, a double-sided sword in the shape of an S. During his teachings with Bahamut, he discovered that his skills with a blade was rudimentary at best until he started to learn from the fire spirit. Exodus and Valina had to start from scratch since the boy knew absolutely nothing about medical jutsus or forging, resulting in them having to start from the basics. Free running and Parker were one of the few things that the blonde was good at with his rather unlimited stamina from running. Ares started to teach him the basic moves like wall runs and some vaults. During his time with Aden, he quickly learned that he had to throw almost all things he learned from Bahamut into the wind because of the uniqueness of the weapon. Aside from all this training, the boy had increased the weight he carried on his body to further improve his muscular strength. From all of his training, Naruto looked a little leaner from the loss of almost all of his baby fat and thus allowing his muscles to start to stand out, no matter how small they were. His spiky blonde hair grew wilder and untamed as they now reached his shoulder blades, while his bangs occasionally covered his face. Sometimes, he had to tie his hair back in order to control it during training. Currently, he stood at a height of 4'3", in contrast to his old height of 3'11" from the beginning of the year. And because of his growth, he had to go back to Kenshin in order to get more clothes. Fortunately, the old man had a solution in the form of seals. He placed several seals on the clothes, allowing them to grow in size to fit the boy until the boy reached the height of 5. Once he reached the limit, the blonde would have to come back to the store to get more clothes to suit him. Returning to his studies, the blonde soon-to-be shinobi chose for his clones to study in the art of sealing. Much to his surprise, he had taken a large interest on the subject and resulted in his growth on the subject to increase dramatically. It specially helped with the good calligraphy that the Hokage helped him with when he was younger. With his interest for the subject growing, he was able to almost finish the basics of the art and could start the intermediate levels. Before Yamato left in the mornings, Naruto would hand him a stack of seals he made. The reason for this was for the older man to go to Kenshin's store and sell them to him. The money that Yamato gained back would be used to pay back the Hokage. It wouldn't be long before his seals started to increase in prices from the demand, along with the increase in uses, and it eventually led to him fully paying off the Hokage, much to the old man's disapproval of the blonde boy giving him the money. The money made afterwards were placed into a bank account under the name NN. It wouldn't be long before the blonde would be able to create more advanced seals like suppression seals. Nothing could be compared to the growth he made with sealing. His chakra control increased from the amount of chakra control exercises he had to do for elemental manipulation, but it was still insufficient because of his Jonin level chakra reserves. He was able to improve on his old chakra control techniques like tree walking and leaf levitation, but struggles in water walking. His reflexes and accuracy have improved greatly. It grew through his constant usage of the throwing knives and other projectile-based weapons whenever he hunted animals in the forest. He frequently spars with his clones, which led to his improvement in reflexes. He also had his clones throw blunted projectiles at him to further improve himself, though it would often result in a few scratches and bruises. He progressed with his projectiles to the point that he would be able to hit an object about 20 feet away. His knowledge of the human anatomy improved to the point he generally knew where each one of the vital organs, liver, lungs, spine, jugular vein, carotid artery, brain, kidneys, and heart, was in the human body. Before his time with Valina, Naruto rarely thought about the medical field because of his healing capabilities, but once Valina showed him the benefits of knowing them, he quickly changed his mind. However, he was disappointed when she mentioned that he needed better chakra control. Over time, he learned that he didn't have to rely on chakra to help heal someone. Herbs opened a new branch for healing and led to him making a garden where he grew several of them to make his own salves and creams. This eventually led to him to develop his own styles of poison. His interests led him to dive into herbology. With the help of Anko, known as Snake-chan to the blonde boy, he was able to start make some more advanced poisons and antidotes, some which were his own creation through experimentation. Aside from all of his training, the Hokage began to notice about the blonde's specially high skills in infiltration and stealth after remembering several of the boy's pranks. He began to issue special missions to the boy to utilize those skills in order to further improve them and also to further improve the village. These missions generally had Naruto try and enter a compound building of high strategic value. He would then place traps and evaluate the security of the building before giving the Hokage a report about it. Improvements would then be made to try and seal up the holes in the security and would result in the improvement of the village's overall security. Hokage's eyes only. The early evaluation of skills of Naruto Uzumaki. Age: 8. Sex: male. Birthday: October 10th. Blood type: O. Skills: sealing equals journeyman. He is learning at his own pace on this field. If he is able to meet Jiraiya of the Sannin and learn from him, then his skills in sealing will increase greatly. Stealth equals low to mid jonin. He is able to pull pranks without being seen in broad daylight before he started to train intensively. Improved through infiltration missions assigned by Hokage. Reflexes equals mid chunin. Speed equals high chunin to low jonin. He was able to outrun any ninja after his pranks, with the exception of some people. Slightly increased due to infiltration missions. Strength equals high chunin. Chakra control equals high genin. It's at this level due to his large chakra reserves and that it continues to increase, resulting in low chakra control when compared to his reserves. Chakra sensing equals NA. Ninjutsu equals apprentice. Ninjutsu equals low chunin. Started learning elemental manipulation from senseis. Ninjutsu equals mid genin. All is able to detect and dispel genjutsus, but lack the control to use them. Ninjutsu equals high genin to low chunin. It's mostly his usage of strength, speed, and reflex, since he only fights like a brawler. Chakra capacity equals around mid jonin level. Intelligence, strategist and tactician equals NA. Medical jutsu antidotes and salves equals high genin, beginning with basics of medical jutsus, but knows how to make antidotes and salves with herbs. Poison creation concocting equals high genin, increased in correlation of antidotes and salves through the usage of herbs and snake poisons. Anbu agent snake assists him in the field of poison because of her usage of snakes. Weapon forging repairing equals apprentice has begun using the basics. He is able to repair some damages on common projectiles like kunais and shurikens. Missions S rank 0, A rank 12, the Anbu HQ infiltration missions. B rank 5, clan compound infiltration missions. C rank 0, B ranked 36. In the Hokage's office the morning after evaluations. The blonde boy just waited as he watched the old Hokage read the results from his first evaluation under Yamato. "Well, this is quite a surprise, Naruto-kun," stated Hiruzen. "Your training has brought forth some progress and the missions I have assigned you have further helped this village. And at this rate, you might become the Hokage and if I'm lucky enough, I will be the one to hand you this hat. I won't let you down, Jai-san," chirped Naruto, which earned him a smile from the third. "I believe I should give them to him. They said that I should give it to him when I thought he was ready or when he reached genin level. With what I just read, he easily passed both of those requirements," Sarutobi thought as he stood up, leaving a confused blonde boy. "Please forgive me, Naruto." "Gigi? Is there something wrong?" asked a curious blonde with a small frown on his face. "I think it is time I told you about your parents," said the elder Sarutobi softly, resulting in making Naruto's eyes widen. What if council give Naruto ancient wolf blood harem? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.